Hello and welcome to another episode of the Spider Experience. This time we're covering three issues. Issues 10 and 11 of Amazing Spider-Man Volume 6, as well as Volume 3, Spider-Man number 1? Question mark? All right, let's get to it. Before we get started, I got to mention our Patreon page at patreon.com/SpideyDudeNetwork. Be sure to join the Patreon if you want to get some exclusive stuff, such as Books of X, which will be a Patreon first show, and all of that. So, without further ado, I am going to introduce my panel, which is me and Neil. Hello, everybody.
Hi, it's just the two of us for now. Adam's going to be in about half an hour. I guess he just wants to skip Judgment Day.
Yes. I am Zach Joyner, and this is the Spidey Experience, the latest episode. Eventually, we're going to have things a little more streamlined. You'll see some of that streamlining at the end of the episode, so I'm not mentioning the Patreon people at the top, but I do want to give our usual disclaimer. If you're an audio listener, which... if you're on SpiderDude.com, we've got 3 episodes in the last 3 days of both this show and the other show here on the channel.
I had to relentlessly bully Zach into releasing them.
Listen, it's been a weird summer.
Yeah, it has.
It's been a very weird summer. But by the end of this week, aka Saturday, we will have caught up on all the audio editions of this show. As of this recording, and with this recording, I will download it. I will get it ready. Patreon members, I will try to get it out to them this weekend, and then next Wednesday, we will have the audio edition of this episode out. And speaking of next Wednesday, I'm going to be having a conversation with Eddie D'Angelini. Now, if you've been following us on both Facebook and on YouTube, you'll notice that I have kind of made the different episodes out. That's because finally StreamYard and Facebook are finally playing nice with one another, and they're creating events whenever we go live. So if you haven't subscribed to us on YouTube and you're maybe subscribed on Facebook, it'll let you know when we're going to go live next. So the tentative plan is this week, because this is the only live episode this week. Next week I'll have the interview with me and Eddie having a conversation. I'm really looking forward to that because I've known Eddie for a long time.
Yeah, you guys worked on the crawl space together.
We crawl space together. We met in San Diego, so I've actually met Eddie. He's also an owner of a comic shop, and he has a webcomic. So a lot of comic-related stuff. At one point, he had every Amazing Spider-Man ever, from 1 through 700. I think is when he. I don't remember. I can't remember. We'll find out together whenever he sold his collection to buy Heidi Ho Comics. So anyway, that's next week. Following week will be a Spidey Dude Does the News. So we're not going to be doing news as part of these reviews anymore. This is something that is changing here on the channel. We're keeping the reviews episodes to where it's just the reviews. I want to do new stuff. I want to talk about
Marvel Legends. Yeah. So what we'll be doing is, in order to streamline, I'm not sure how the episode numbering is going to go, but I think it'll be as is.
Already chaotic. If you're an audio listener, this is technically episode 50. It's our 50th episode.
Wow, including interviews, but numbering is weird. So to explain it, basically, from now on, it'll just be the 4 main panelists doing the review show on the review show, obviously. That allows us to spend more time on each issue, less time on recaps and more on discourse. And
there'll be shorter episodes in general. I mean, the thing is...
more consumable.
Yeah, so one of the things that we've definitely discussed as a group here on the channel and trying to do some different things is that we want to make it a little more consumable. And I'll bring Mayday Mondays up for a minute. One of the reasons that we did Mayday Mondays the way we did was because we wanted it to be very consumable, a quick 30-minute to 45-minute show where we covered a single issue each episode. The reason we did that was because we figured a 30-minute commute to work is something that somebody could easily listen to 1 or 2 episodes in a day.
And so the people who don't want to listen to the news segments, because I know that some people just like get to the comic reviews because Paul is someone who wants to get straight to the comics. He doesn't care about news. So this is kind of a way to not appease him, but I guess a way to everyone gets what they want. So like you can talk about Legends and news with Greg, because I know Greg is coming for news and Legends, and whoever wants to come on.
The cast will kind of sort of expand a little bit as we go. Obviously, if there's a topic that's near and dear to the rest of the guys' heart that they really want to talk about, then yes, we'll have it on. But like when I'll try to have Greg on when we're talking about Legends, and I'm going to talk a lot about Legends and what's going on in a couple of weeks, because we're going to be getting towards the end of the HasLab campaign, and that has been an absolute, thus far as of this, it has been a shit show.
And also, just because I know we will get comparisons to other news shows, we won't waste your time with bullshit. Yeah. There won't be guy dressed as Spider-Man robs convenience store. This will be like actual news or Spider-Man the brand.
I think one time, baseball player makes a Spider-Man-like catch by climbing the netting. Nothing else to do with Spider-Man other than the title of the actual video. I did it as a joke, but I don't know if he actually took it seriously. I'll have to go back and listen to the news shows. Of course, look, we're talking about Brad. And look, I love Brad. Brad's show is very different than this show.
He wants to bring the funny. That's the be-all and all of that.
It's not even bring the fun. He wants to entertain. And if it's making you laugh, then he feels like that's a win, because the news is such a serious business, and doing the news very straight lined is very difficult to do. So but we're going to try to keep the topics as relevant as possible. But it allows me to kind of talk a lot about more the Legends stuff, and it allows certain people to come on who may be a little behind on the reviews side of things, like Greg. Greg wants to be back on the show a lot because he wants to promote, obviously, Voices from the Eerie, which if you have not subscribed to that show, you need to, because the amount of talent that they've brought on thus far in a single year is staggering. It is on the audio side of things, it is our most popular show right now. So it has made a connection. Obviously, it's a great time to be a Gargoyles fan with all the merch that they're getting, and obviously the attention that they're getting with the new comic as well. So the fact that the show,
also they are more or less the backbone of our Patreon right now. So Greg is doing kind of God's work for us.
Yeah, Greg is not only is he a Patreon member himself, but like a lot of our patrons have come from the Voices from the Eerie side, and so we definitely want to make sure that they get their money's worth every month, and they're enjoying the other stuff too. I've gotten good feedback. I mean, Neil and I have both seen it, so we're really excited about it. Walter, hi, bud.
So I'm glad that Matt is kind of seeing what we're doing. Yes, we will be putting out more content more often, and in more consumable format. So
there'll be some stuff that's gonna there's gonna be some weeks where I'm not going to really be doing an episode, but my plan is on Wednesdays I'll have a small 10-minute video about something that I'm thinking about or whatever. That'll be a little more consumable. I've got one that I've got to finish editing, and then once I do that, then I'll have it queued up, and that way you guys can watch it. It won't be a lot of video. It'll be mainly audio, but in a video format, just so that way it's something that I can kind of quickly put out, and it'll obviously tie into Dark Web.
So Mr. Comics, you are correct. JR makes those segments worth sticking around for, but none of us are JR. We are not JR, so we couldn't make those segments fun. We are smart. We are smart enough to understand that we're not JR. Yeah,
and I mean JR being the old man yells at cloud shtick that he is so revered for.
Rightfully so.
is he's trying to be he's trying to be irreverent, and look, Neil and I have both had some of those type of news topics that we've in the past where we've been able to run.
What's the point of this?
But my point is that usually when we're running with it, it's mostly to mock Brad, and so then it becomes a little more mean spirited when we're mocking. Like with JR, they're similar age brackets, so it's not us young millennials and Gen yelling "Okay, Boomer." We don't want to do that, and that's not something we do here. So, but
also, Mr. Comics, who said that he, yeah. So Mr. Comics, I'm glad that your hernia surgery went well. I'm glad you're recovering, and thanks to Radek for reminding me to mention that. Yeah, and thank you for also math is hard. Yeah. So, yeah. Once so I believe do you want to talk about the content vault or the content archive?
Yeah, so that's going to be something that too. Eventually, I'll try to get them up on the channel, but the content archive, so CSC and Spec Radio, because they are essentially, well, in both cases, they're completed shows. Shows have had a finale; they're completed, so they're part of the Spidey Dude vault. Season 1 of ASM Classics, you could put in that same vault. Season 2 obviously is going to be a new episode will be dropping next week. Sabi Sema, all the stuff that's new, that's going to be right there. But you can still go on and talk about it if you decide. If somebody wants to leave a review on one of those like old shows, we will talk about it like on those news segments when I have Greg on.
And we will be marking on the thumbnails when we upload them distinctly what is part of the content vault and what isn't. We actually created, I think that we showed them on Twitter. We created new thumbnails for the YouTube project, and they're obviously not the final product.
Yeah.
But they are more or less a roadmap of where we want each project to be distinct. Mm-hmm. And this includes books of X when it eventually releases on YouTube.
Yeah,
but every one of these is meant to be visually distinctive, so you know what you're looking at, and some of them will have. If you look at the Spider-Man with the Spidey Dude logo there, it's going to be edited to say part of the Spidey content archive or whatever we chose as a group to call it.
Yeah, we're still workshopping the name.
Yeah, we're voting.
Yeah, but yeah, so that type of stuff will definitely be on there. In terms of the Patreon, we've got a commentary that we have recorded.
It was a fun one. We had all 4 of the Coffee Bean Gang on there for. It was the Andrew Garfield Amazing Spider-Man film, the first one.
Yeah, we had a blast. Javi is a fan.
So it was fun. It was fun to see like all the different opinions floating around.
Yeah, it really was. It's definitely an entertaining thing. It's definitely something that we'll be putting behind the paywall for various reasons.
just because of its length alone.
Well, yeah, the length alone. I mean, we went the full length of the show, and I think we did that. We had like a 10-minute introduction.
A 3-minute intro, and then like a 15-minute after party. I guess.
Yeah, so that's exclusive to That's going to be exclusive to Patreon members. I think I'm going to drop that in a couple of weeks.
And then we also we have planned, because Disney Plus has decided to drop them on on their platform, the MTV Spider-Man show. And as someone who goes back and forth on the quality of that show, I'm very interested to bring on a crew and talk about it.
Yeah, so
those will be locked behind the paywall too. So I believe they'll be available to the $5 tier.
Yeah, $5 tier and up. We will be adding. We've already added we've already adjusted. I think there's a $5, $10, and $25 tier. We're going to be adding an additional tier of $1.
It's essentially the tip jar. You get
the tip. You get eternal thanks. I think we'll probably make a small graphic or something. Highlighting
once we've built up enough of an audience and we have a need to distinguish who's donating what.
Exactly. So, I mean, we're doing really well. The explosion of growth in our Patreon in terms of our patrons definitely is largely due to Voices from the Eerie.
But do love them gargoyles, so
well, and having Greg on each episode is, and you know, I want Wiseman to do more things like Young Justice, but if he is not brought back for Young Justice for season 5, then that does give him more time, and that was always one of the things that we ran into with Spec Radio. That is why it was so infrequent. But you know, Greg is always down to talk gargoyles, but it kind of was serendipitous that you also are adding this new comic that's going to be covered. The fact that the new
the timing was incredible.
Listen, I've joked with Greg that every time we've launched a show with a specific niche, Clone Saga Chronicles, Spec Radio, and now Voices, like the things that we desired and wanted, we got. For example, CSC, you go back and listen to those first couple episodes. The thing that we were begging for was acknowledge Ben Reilly and collections.
we got Ben Reilly acknowledged.
We got the acknowledgement by like episode 12 was when we talked about them announcing the first trade. So like just crazy. And then right as we were starting to develop Spec Radio, the Blu-ray comes out on Spectacular Spider-Man. And so, which at one point was the #1 selling Blu-ray on Amazon for like a couple of days whenever it came out. So because like the fans swarmed, because the only way you could watch it for a long time was either if you caught it on Vortex, or you had to watch pirated copies on YouTube. And so, you know, what's up, SoFlo? By the way, hello, SoFlo. Walter is in the house. He's not going to make me try to cuss as much as last time because, yeah. But I'm glad I didn't say. I echo what Neil said about Mr. Comics. I've had hernia surgery. I had it in my groin. I don't know if you had the like more of the belly button hernia type thing. So,
anyways,
I had the mesh surgery. It's not terribly fun, but a speedy recovery for you, buddy. He also on Twitter he has painted a painting of the Scarlet Spider. So if you have not seen it, it's really pretty good painting of old Ben in his hoodie. So, what do we want to talk about next? Now that we've talked about Patreon stuff and the future of this channel, while we're waiting on
I guess let's talk about Books of X real quick, because we've been kind of talking about it on and off, but we haven't really discussed a roadmap.
Yes.
Okay. So the first 2 episodes, which I'm actually working on getting my what?
Nice T-shirt, by the way.
Yeah, thank you.
As I have spaghetti that was spilled on mine. All right.
So, anyways, Books of X, a very divisive era of X-Men. Whether or not you enjoy Sex Island, it's fun to talk about. So here's kind of how it works out. We've talked about it in the Discord before, but the first 2 episodes we'll be talking about the 12-part series, House of X and Powers of 10. We'll be reading in the order as shown in the hardcover. I can grab it real quick if you need a visual aid.
Sure.
1 second, I'll be right back.
While you're doing that, Walter, get well, buddy. I know you recently have been fighting the Big C, so I'm glad that you are up and about. Every time you comment on the live stream, it always puts a little smile on my face because it knows that you're still with us. We gave you a lot of shit on Clone Saga Chronicles, but I hope that you heard my tribute to you, and I'm glad you're better, buddy.
Okay, so I'm back. So the first two episodes will be talking about this hardcover. It'll be in reading order, which I believe is House of X. The reading order is weird, but basically we'll be covering the first 6 chapters of a 12-chapter story in the first episode, setting everything up, discussing the setup, and then episode 2 will be concluding. Now, every episode after that, if you don't know, what Marvel did was they released the Dawn of X trades. And these are sort of like, you know how in Japan they have like Shonen Jump, where they have like samples of different stories?
Yeah.
They did something like that, where they take like one issue of every series and compile it into a trade. The first issue of every series that launched with Dawn of X is collected in Dawn of X Volume 1. So that includes XMen, Marauders, Fallen Angels, Excalibur, X-Force, and New Mutants. So every issue will be kind of going quickly over every issue in every trade. We'll be going through one trade an episode, potentially maybe 2, depending on how we feel about the first 2 episodes.
Yeah.
But once we get to X of Swords, which is the main crossover event, that will be a Patreon only episode, meaning that every episode for Books of X has about a 6-month time cap until it's released to the public on other platforms after Patreon. But X of Swords will only be on Patreon. It is exclusively paywalled to that platform. We will have other stories that are tied to that, such as the Hellfire Gala. Hi, Waylon. So Hellfire Gala's Inferno, which is the last Hickman story, Judgment Day. That's gonna be kind of confusing because we're gonna be talking about Judgment Day on this episode, so the timing is actually pretty good for it.
Yeah, for us to be talking about like what the roadmap is of Books of X, it's kind of
the timing is fortuitous.
Yeah.
But Judgment Day will be locked behind a paywall, and these will mostly be 2-parters because Books of X is about the same size as, or not Books of X, X of Swords is about the same size as this book, about actually maybe larger. So we're definitely splitting that into at least 2 Patreon exclusive episodes. And like I said earlier, what?
It's going to be Patreon released first, so they're going to get the episodes before everybody else. But then there's going to be certain episodes that are going to be behind the paywall.
Yes.
It's very similar to what we do with the sideline reviews of like Ben Reilly and stuff like that. Which, by the way, if you have not heard the Ben Reilly one, the last Patreon, the 3rd Patreon episode that we did, I gushed. I tried to clip that. So I may post it on the YouTube page, but the problem is I cussed a lot, so I got to beat myself.
Yeah. But
Sorry,
yeah, this is kind of an experimental format for us, and I think it'll dictate the way the rest of our shows go from here, at least the ones that are released on Patreon. But this is kind of my way of giving back to the patrons, because I know Greg does a lot of the heavy lifting, but I want to do my part for the channel as well.
Yeah, and so there's more to come. We are doing the slot debates, and so I do want to address something that Matt asked me. What is going on with Forgotten Era? So my original intent was to do 3 shows on the channel. Okay. Forgotten Era is something that I want to do, but there was things that I wanted to get in place first. One of those things was I wanted to finish and put the bookend on CSC. So that was one of my first things. My second thing, as Sarah walks in the door, causing the dogs to go crazy, was that there was certain people that I wanted to get with and talk to about the story behind the story. I wanted to be able to do that. So I wanted to make it different from what we done with CSC. Different in the sense of I wanted to be able to talk about the story behind the scenes, because there's very clearly a story there. And so I've reached out to certain people. I haven't got back with them yet, or they haven't got back with me yet, and so that was one of the factors. And thirdly was time. I don't anticipate me starting Forgotten Era until we finish Make Mine Mayday, which probably won't be for another year or so. Just with the way, even though we're really barreling through Amazing Spider-Girl, and we're going to be getting to the Spectacular Spider-Girl stuff and the dark, as Kelly and I call it, the Dark Ages. We
Is that your phone, Zach?
Yes, that was my phone. All right. Sorry, that was my. That was actually not. That was my iPad. She was telling me she was leaving. So, train of thought. Back on the train. Okay, so it probably won't be happening until after Make My Mayday's done, or we're winding down on Make My Mayday, if that makes sense. Yeah. It's trying to do more than the 2 podcasts that I do, and especially with us segmenting this show, and it basically going to be more or less kind of weekly. The time. I work 60 to 68 hours a week at my job, so I don't have a ton of free time. Let's put it that way. So I've been notoriously cagey about what I wanted to do with Forgotten Era for a long time. I understood that. But I feel like there's going to be enough time passes between here and the time we actually launch. And the other thing too is I want to try to have a buffer of episodes for that show, so that way that show comes out on a timely manner, because I don't want it to become like CSC, where it became so frequent that it took us 10 years to cover a 2.5-year story. So that's the other big thing. We'll take any questions in the chat for right now while we're waiting on the rest of the gang to show up.
Adam is on his way. I told him that he asked for a link. I sent it to him. Okay. But yeah, I'm very happy with how these thumbnails turned out for the other shows.
Yeah, I'm really. I haven't gotten any feedback yet. Oh yeah,
Hot Toy review. That's coming.
Go back on that. That is going to come out sometime next week. I keep forgetting this is a unboxing that Hobby did, so it's going to be on the channel. He's going to talk about it. So it's probably going to come out, I think, next Thursday. Or no, next Friday.
Yeah. Actually, hey, it's Adam.
Hello,
how you doing, Adam.
I'm here.
Adam Shingle, the art apologist himself, part of the Spidey Radio Network. We're just kind of giving a kind of a
quality of life update.
Yeah, quality of life update. We're talking about the future of the site, of the channel, and because I've done a lot of future of the site things, and some of the things have never came to pass. But the website's still going to get updated. I've done a little bit of tinkering with the navigation and stuff like that, so hopefully it'll make it a little easier. For example, I haven't finished this yet, but I've been working on it.
I almost fell out of my chair.
Is that the chair that you like? The replacement of the Shack chair?
Yes, this is the replacement for the Shack chair.
You almost let it buck you out of the. And there's Daisy in the background.
Hi, Daisy. Mr. Comics asks, "What's my favorite era of X-Men?" I guess by default, the Hicksman era. Just because that's the one that really got me into the brand. I mean, I love like the Claremont era, and that post-Decimation era, but I don't think any of them grab me the same way that Hickman's era has.
Yeah, I have nostalgia for the Jim Lee X-Men, but that's because of the cartoon, not because of the comics. I enjoyed. I tried. The problem with X-Men, and I get what Hickman was trying to do in streamlining the brand. The problem with X-Men has been that it's notoriously hard for a new reader to get into without having to go back to basically the beginning of Claremont's run and read it from there. What's up, Greg?
Yeah, I'd love to come on Mr. Comics and talk about XMen.
Yeah, Mr. Comics got a great podcast on his channel over at Mr. Comics 89. Check him out over on YouTube. I have been on the channel. Also, Sabi Sim Era podcast is going to be on this channel. All the old episodes that are going to come out first. So it's going to be a while before we get back to him live streaming, because that's how it was exactly the same format on this show. Or as this show. So they used StreamYard, they used the whole thing and did all that. So we will, when we get to the point where I think there's like 20 episodes to release. So we're going to try to get all those released first. That was on the old network that he was on. Just a couple episodes I was a part of. I think we're about probably a month or two away from, a couple months away, several months away from my episode. I came on for Spec 149, the Carrion episode. So yeah. So
Go
ahead.
Do we want to start reviews since we've got 3 of the 4?
Let's answer these 3 questions right quick, and then we'll do it. Or these 2 questions. So real quickly, Zach, what's your favorite Bond movie? And for each Bond actor, oof. Well, I mean, Goldfinger, kind of self-explanatory, considering it's right there. For Connery, I'll just do a couple. Brosnan has Goldeneye, but like, I like Die Another Day for just the stupidity of it.
It's very absurd.
Yes. I liked all of Brosnan's movies. I still have not watched the last Daniel Craig film, No Time to Die.
You haven't seen No Time to Die?
I have not seen No Time to Die yet.
I still think Skyfall is the best of Craig's films.
But Skyfall and then Casino Royale, I mean, those are kind of my 2. Skyfall.
Quantum of Solace is not a good film, at least on its own. It's very much a sequel to Casino Royale.
Yes, if you watch them back to back, it's far better than than as a singular film experience.
Yeah, a self-contained movie. Yeah.
And then my favorite episodes of the Spidey cartoon, I think Turning Point, which is
I think that's one of mine. That, the wedding, maybe the water clone thing was pretty good.
I think a lot of the
later ones.
I think the later ones.
The finale is good.
What'd you say, Neil?
I think probably the symbiote episodes, the first ones that kind of accidentally set up the symbiote physiology for like the anger inducing that would kind of become a staple of the franchise.
There are certain elements that Semper
definitely came from the show.
Oscorp is one of those things that came from the show. Before the 90s show was never referred to as Oscorp, because trust me, Josh would beat this over my head. But Oscorp was never referred to until Oscorp until literally after Norman's return. So, which some funny continuity that we'll talk about with today's episode. But so season 1 I think is really pretty strong. I really love all of season 1. Secret Wars, I think, was the first time you saw a lot of this crossover, and the XMen Mutant Agenda crossover I thought was really good too. So getting all those crossovers was a lot of fun. But you're right. The later the show got, the more it got into the mythology of the character, and it's iconic for a reason. And it's a lot of people's favorite for a reason. So, and look, I love the 90s show. It's part of what got me into comics and into Spider-Man. But my favorite Spider-Man adaptation cartoon-wise is Spectacular, just because of knowing the work that was put into it. I do want to get John Semper on. Sort of. I have a very mixed opinion about Semper because I feel like that
He's hilarious.
he's unintentionally hilarious, but like I feel like he does deserve some credit for certain things, like we just acknowledged. But sometimes he has a tendency to try to take credit for things that make no sense within context. So, also, I will be doing another interview, I think, in November. I've got to get that lined up, and maybe this month, for the book that was sent to me, which I don't have next to me, but I'll talk about it more at the end of the episode. So with that, get Semper to take credit for the creation.
I mean, I don't know if I would have been a Spider-Man fan without that cartoon. I'll tell you that right now.
Considering that half of CSC's opening theme was basically a love letter to the 90s show. And the amount of, hell, this sound effect is because of the 90s show. So, all right, without further ado, let's get to the reviews. We're 30 minutes in and
no Paul.
No Paul.
And the train is off. The train is leaving the station.
Off we go, baby. Okay.
Let's record the timestamp so that way I can. By the way, also join our Discord too. I'm going to make sure the link is included in the description down below. So if you haven't joined our Discord, you should join our Discord.
We post when the episode goes live every night. So.
All right, so
let's start with Slott.
Oh, okay.
Okay,
that's fine, actually.
So, Spider-Man #1.
Wait, because Paul's the Slott apologist. We probably should have Paul on for the Slott issue.
Well, is Paul going to come on? Because he said he's not even sure he's coming on. You did not read the text?
Well, he can air his opinions on that if he comes on later.
Okay, all right. So yeah,
we'll have a big like brouhaha thing going if that happens. So.
Yeah, that's true.
Let's start with it first.
It'll be funnier if he's having to catch up.
Okay, all right, let's go.
Okay.
I guess. I don't know.
So, Spider-Man #1, legacy number 157. What was it about the legacy numbering being off that made a big hubbubaloo on the internet?
It's not really. It's off by. I don't even think it's off. It's just not counting the Bloodlines Abrams thing, from what I understand.
Oh.
It does not count the Abrams man as
yeah. I think it does count the annual because I think there was like one. Oh no! It counts. I think the -1 issue is what it does. I think because there's like I think it's like one number more, and I think that's got to be the -1 issue, but I'm not totally sure. But the numbering is solid. Other than that, I think from what I could calculate.
Okay. So, written by Dan Slott. Jesus, I just wallowed my camera. Art by Mark Bagley with inks by John Dell, my arch nemesis and inker. He's back. God damn it. And colors by Edgar Delgado. What?
I said your buddy, your pal, John Dell.
Yeah. So the issue begins with kind of a recap of Peter's origins. Spider gets radiated, bites a boy with weird glasses and a sweater vest in the year 2000. And it cuts to the present. Peter is walking down the street and he gets a call from his boss, Norman Osborn, the Green Goblin. But not really. He's actually a good guy now. As Norman explained, I'm an ex-addict to the goblin juice. Please help me, Peter. Shut up, Finkman. We'll talk about the colors later.
The colors are good, I think.
I don't like them. We'll talk about them later, though. So Norman says, "Hey, now that you're a corporate stooge, you want to retrieve a truck full of stolen Oscorp equipment? It's kind of expensive. Could affect your paycheck, buddy." So Peter says, "You know what? Thanks, capitalism. I love being bribed to do my job." So he deploys his drone thing, Bug. It's Bug, right?
Yes, it's called Bug. Yes.
Okay, so Bug, I guess, does the job of the spider bot from the PS4 game and disables the truck, and Peter saves a mother and her child from getting hit when the truck crashes into the wall. Hey. Oh, nope, Paul left. He's like, I'm out. So Spidey takes the fight to them. They have ray guns, and everyone's like, "Ah, they just have guns. We'll be fine." Clearly, they have never been in New York.
Especially right now.
Yeah. So a bunch of kids on the side of the street start playing music. They give him a beat. And Spider-Man does a little jingle as he wraps up the fight very effectively and quickly. And he gives the little boy a $1 tip, and the guy says, "Cheap ass spider bot." Meanwhile, in Loom World, Symbio Bro's favorite villain, Shathra, is communing with one of her nestlings, who is Annie Parker. If you haven't read the Edge of SpiderVerse issues, I don't blame you, because no one did. But basically, Shathra is back, and she's infecting spider characters to cut off not to cut off Morland's food supply, but because I guess she was angry at her sister for being better than her. It's a Dan Slott story. That sounds about as emotionally bland as it is. So, hidden away in a secret corner of the SpiderVerse, Spider UK, Aranya, and Madam Web are hiding away and realizing, oh wait, Shathra's going for Peter Parker, the Chosen One, in Earth 616. Let's send our biggest gun. Meanwhile, back on Earth 616, Spidey is mopping up the praises of the crowd, and then a portal opens and a bunch of wasps come in. They're not locusts, so it's not biblical, but it is wasps. So I guess Janet Van Dyne got sick of her and Peter being mortal enemies, took the fight to him. Another portal opens, and out steps everyone's favorite steampunk vampire bitch, Morlun. Peter decides, hey, I'm gonna beat him up before he kills me, and Peter literally breaks the suit trying to fight him, and then it crushes Bug instantly. Norman's given him a crapping talking to, saying like, this suit is expensive, it's the best the money can buy, how are you breaking this thing? And then Peter gets unmasked in broad daylight. We never bring that up. As he's slammed into a taxi, and then he's saved by Silk and Miles Morales. Oh, god damn it, Silk's getting ruined by this, son of a bitch. Meanwhile, back in the book that no one cares about, Morland's mouth is webbed up by Peter, and then Jessica Drew comes in, shooting him with a venom blast. Cindy and Miles try to help Peter get away, but then Cindy and Miles both get stung by wasps. If you've read the Edge of Spider-Verse comics, that means you're getting turned into a Shathra being. I don't know what they're called. I don't care. Spider-Man Noir jumps out of a portal. He's not voiced by Nicolas Cage, unfortunately. If he was, this book would be 10 times more epic. Peter gets stung by a wasp too, and he notices, hey, Noir dude, what's with the knife? Turns out that this is London, and he stabs Jessica Drew. And she's been severed from the web of life and time. Is it life and time?
Yeah, Web of Life and Destiny.
Web of Life and Destiny. I'm sorry. It's just time, death,
Yep.
all these abstract concepts that don't belong in a Spider-Man book.
Yeah.
Kind of show. So anyways, Jess goes, I'm going ghost, and she turns into a big pile of webbing. So Peter clutches the spaghetti pile and says, Jess, but Morlun saves Peter from getting shanked by Spider-Man Noir, and he's like, hey, you guys are my food source. If Shathra takes you guys out, or if Shathra infects you guys, I'm kind of screwed. I won't explain how I got away from Sin Eater, or how I got my powers back, or how I even have dimensional portals again. But okay.
Into next issue, because they already did that literally in the scene with like Madam Web and all that.
Yeah. Oh, did they explain that?
Yeah, like there's a little dialogue box. More on this, why they're in this particular dimension. Next issue.
I'm talking about Moreland, because at the end, because remember in Spencer's run, he got shotgunned by a Sin Eater, and then
But he was he in Sinister War? I can't remember. Wasn't he?
yeah, but then he never got sent back to Loom World, so he should just still be on Earth 616. He shouldn't be in his steampunk clothing.
But my point is that this is a big gun that was sent by. That's how I read it.
Is that
big gun?
Well, the thing is, we know that
I don't care. I'm still gonna get upset about it.
I mean, it's the reveal is that he is who they sent, right? But I guess it's
very clunkily introduced if that's the case.
But the thing is, I guess it could be implied that like they sent him from Earth. I don't know. No, that'd be back to Earth. I don't know what I'm saying. Never mind. Carry on.
Dimension bullshit is bullshit. Oh, hi, Waylon. So Spider-Man Noir, I guess, opens some more Shothra portals and says, "Hey guys, you guys can be switched to the Shothra side or be severed from the web." And 3 figures step out of the portal. Ghost Spider, who should be an Earth 6-1. No wait, no, Gwenverse happened. Shit, never mind. I'm wrong. Spider-Punk, whose mini just ended. And everyone's favorite punching bag at Marvel Entertainment, Mayday Parker, aka Spider-Girl / woman. I can hear Kelly's arteries hardening from over here.
So we'll definitely talk about that in extensive detail.
By the way, unfortunately.
I'm muted?
No, you're not muted.
Oh. What? Huh?
I was saying to be continued, but unfortunately.
Oh, yeah. To be continued. Kelly and I will definitely be talking about the Spider-Girl aspect of this on the next episode of Make My Mayday, which will be, hopefully, next Thursday. Join in then as we cover it next time. We haven't decided if we're going to make this like part of the main review show or if we're going to put that. Oh, okay. All right. We've decided.
We're making.
Oh man,
we're making lots on the Patreon paywall thing.
Yeah, so we're still also trying to figure out how we're going to do dark web. So
TBD on that. I need to figure out a flow chart for that.
I think I'm probably just going to read the Spidey stuff there.
I'm here for the XMen stuff. That's why you keep me around.
Well, yeah, that you can do that, Neil. I think I'm probably just going to read the Spidey stuff.
No, that's okay.
We're going to cover the main stuff, obviously. The ancillary stuff probably will be Patreon exclusive. So
then again, we need to figure out what is ancillary, because it all looks like it's tied together. There's no main book.
I mean, I think, the Mary Jane Black Cat thing sounds like it's going to be sort of important from stuff they've been talking about in the letters pages and etc.
Page. That's what this recording?
Yeah, as of today. Yeah.
But I've got a dumb question. So why didn't Anya and Julia tell like any of the spider characters what's going on? Like, I guess it is Dan Slott, and his entire premise is just characters make the most stupid decisions possible in order to make the plot move along. So I guess this is just their way of letting it happen.
Yeah, somebody that can definitely have an opinion about Dan Slott.
Uh-oh.
Paul. Hello, Paul.
Well, Paul, you're muted, so your opinion is meaningless.
How about now?
I can hear you now.
Ah, shit. His opinion has worth again. God damn.
Always does. I made most of Neil's 5-minute long synopsis of the whole comic book.
This book is dense, dude.
It's not that dense. Spider-Man gets attacked by Shothra or whatever her name is.
Moreland, actually.
JMS. Yeah.
I see.
He doesn't even get attacked by Moreland. It's a misunderstanding.
He didn't hear.
Okay. Anyway, I'm sorry. I'm trying to figure out the best way for my camera. So we're talking about what's her name?
SpiderVerse 3: The Quickening.
This one should be called Spider-Geddon because it's the end of it all, actually.
Allegedly.
Exactly.
SpiderVerse: The End of My Money.
I just like how none of these Spider-Verse things mattered after the first one.
I should just reset.
They're all just in secondary titles.
So let one. let's
Let's do grades real quick.
yeah, let's get some grades first. We'll start with Neil. What do you think about this issue?
I'm gonna give it a C. So here's a hot take. The first like third of this book is actually pretty good. Like the stuff that Slott does of just like
That's a hot take.
I honestly didn't like it that much.
That's what I'm saying is that Adam disagrees. So.
Work is that we don't like Dan Slott.
I would still give it a C though.
But the art's
okay.
the line art's pretty good. I don't like John Dell's inks because he leaves like entire sections of it uninked. But I don't like the colors. I don't think Delgado's a good colorist for Bagley. If this had been like Josh Burcham or who colored him during Spencer's run, it wasn't Hollowell. Brian Reber.
Yeah.
I think it would have been a lot better. But I think Delgado has too light of a palette for Bagley's line art.
Yeah,
He's great with Ramos.
Yeah, certain panels were great, like really well done, and I don't disagree with you. Like a lot of the art is really good, but there is some leaps in logic. I mean, Neil, you did bring it up, but let's finish giving our grades. Adam, what's your grade?
C.
All right. Paul, what's your grade?
I'm gonna go with. Honestly, I didn't think about grades over this one. I'd give it an A minus.
Jesus Christ!
The upset.
You made me mad, Paul. I'm freaking mad.
Here's the thing with this book. It's funny. I have not read Dan Slott's Spider-Man run in a long time. We're gonna do the Slott debates. We keep talking about them. They're coming eventually, but it's whatever, right? Like I don't know. We're gonna do it, but I can tell you right now, I enjoyed Slott's run for the most part up until the last pre-clone conspiracy. After that, it's pretty much very hit and miss, mostly miss, in my opinion. That being said, it's a long time on the book. The one thing I'm going to say is I was nervous about coming into this because I've been tainted by YouTube animals, basically being like, oh, that's not a terrible writer. You can't write anything. Oh, my God, from you guys' history of the crawl space, it'll be anti-Dan Slott people, which is fine. It's whatever.
Hey, I gave some praise. Shut up.
Listen, Neil, I have to take my shots when I can, okay? Listen. So here's
why.
I just said people, dude. It is not a stretch to say, for the most part, that this is no detriment. I'm not even trying to be talking sh. I'm just being real. The crawl space is not like Dan Slott. That's a reality.
Yeah, no, that's true. Like that's
true. Like, I'm not trying to talk shit. I'm just being real, and it's cool.
Paul, you're a sports guy. Do you ever follow SB Nation's beef history?
No, I do. Yeah, I have it. Yeah,
okay, it's like they do. It's like people where they actually have like legitimate gripes with each other and they have beef or whatever. Like
that's fine. Yeah, and that's fine.
There should be like a crawl space versus Slott beef history because that would be entertaining.
So, and now I say all that to say that you guys have definitely are more critical of Dan Slott than I have you two, being you and Neil. Adam's a little more, I think, in the middle. It seems like you kind of tend to go towards them. I'd say, right?
Sure, I guess. I wasn't when I read.
That's Greg.
Greg.
When I read Superior, I just wasn't really enjoying it at that time.
I think to me, Superior was kind of the point where I realized that Slott would just let the characters do whatever he needed to in order to make the plot move along. Because like I think at some point, like the Avengers or MJ were just inhaling like stupidium in order to make the plot keep moving.
Yeah, well, and we don't want to autopsy his old run. Let's keep it with this.
Let's talk about SpiderVerse.
I'm all saying that because I was nervous about coming into it thinking like maybe I've been too easy on Slott. To be honest, and it's not a detriment to you guys at all either. I'm just being real. I'm like, man, maybe I'm being a little too easy on him. Like I'm being too favorable, if you will. So I say all that. The issue, I'm like, no, I love Dan Slott. This is good. I like this. So
I never gave my grade.
They're reviewing. I'm sorry.
B-. Okay.
I'll take that. I'll take that.
Whenever you start an arc, in my opinion, you've got to try to get me to where I'm interested. And as a result, that is one thing that I judge, like when we're launching a new title. Am I interested in reading the next issue? I have not read any of the Edge of the Spider-Verse stuff. So I don't know anything about that.
Same.
I know it's been reported about, one of the characters or whatever. But other than that, I've not read any of that. So I kind of knew about Annie, but not really. I'm interested to see what they're going to do with Mayday. I don't think this is going to be a...
They're not going to kill her. I think they realized after killing off her dad in the original Spider-Verse event that they can't get away with that again.
Yeah, I am legitimately interested to see what happens next issue. And so,
do you remember what happened?
But
the end of
Paul, I'm going to be honest with you. This is not a Stanley Kubrick movie.
Do you remember?
We remember.
The 21st Night September?
That thing they're not going to do anything with. They just put it in there just because.
So the fact that they put in So the fact that they put in Spider-Punk...
I'll happily admit that I'm wrong about that, but I don't think that's going anywhere.
I honestly think there will be a half of an issue where they're going to explain what happened to Mayday, and that's going to be... I think that'll be addressed. It's Slott. This is the same guy who literally took like 3.5 years to do a follow-up part on a plot point that he established with the... remember how long it took for the Otto Octavius grave scene to actually pay off? That was all because of freaking Clone Conspiracy. It took like 3.5, 4 years for it to happen.
I'm not defending Clone Conspiracy in that whole era of Slott. I can never defend that.
Can you guys hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. Go ahead.
Because I've been trying to say a thing. I think the fact that Ghost Spider and Spider-Punk, who are both appearing in a major motion picture next year and are both like tentpole figures of the Spider-Verse mythos, I think Mayday's pretty safe as far as, being alive at the end of this. And also Annie Parker, who is a Slott OC. I have a pretty safe feeling that Peter's going to whip up some bullshit magic solution and pour it down all these characters' throats and... Oh, hey, they're okay again.
Do I think there's going to be like this massive amount of characters at the end of this? No, I don't. I do think that there is going to be a culling of characters, and I think that is more or less what they're trying to do. I think they're trying to narrow the focus to, all right, who's going to be in the film? So,
really?
Well, the film is supposed to have a shit ton. They say.
Listen. When we do the news episode in a couple of weeks, I will talk about the Zeb Wells stuff and what was said in the podcast. What's part of what's said in the letters page to here. It's kind of hinted at.
Can I talk about the book yet? I've been waiting here. I'm ready. I'm ready to talk about this book.
We've been talking about it. This is
talking about it, but I was taking that as an aside. Paul, I'm going to shut up and let you have the floor for about however long it's going to take you.
5 minutes. Here's the thing. I legitimately was worried about this book because I really thought that you guys tainted my mind for liking Dan Slott, and no, I loved it, and it was. I don't think Bagley's ever done Slott before with this.
No,
and it was. I gotta tell you, I think it might be a match made in heaven.
No, hang on. There was one. They did work together once. In the 90s, during the symbiotes, but this is the first time since then. Yes,
right. But
that was like a backup.
Yeah, for all intents and purposes, this is
the first time, more or less. Like this is the first substantial.
time. No,
exactly. Now I say all that, and I'm assuming that Slott's still doing old school, Marvel style, where it's he's doing plot, and then Bagley does the drawings, and he does the script afterwards. I think there is something to be said of how Bagley tells a story, and he's such an efficient storyteller, and Slott, I think, really needs that. I think for an artist, he needs efficient storytellers. If an artist is a little bit more aloof, if you will, a little more artistic, like I think some of the weaker issues are probably with the and maybe I would say, I'm not sure how he did this, but there's some artists he's worked with that he doesn't gel with. Obviously, that's every writer. But I think with the ones that are the more efficient, I would say they're not necessarily the prettiest of pictures, but they're more efficient ones. They probably are the ones that he does the best with because they tell such great stories. He's able to get ideas and build off of that and have like fun moments. And it really feels like in this issue in particular, there was a lot of the energy was there. And that was the first issue. But the problem with first issues with me, and just like a sitcom, is that you try to put too much into it. And I think that the way they paced this issue together, whereas with the plot that he had and that Bagley knew how to interject and have everything flow, I thought it was really well done, to be honest. And I thought I loved the different coloring with the different SpiderVerse era. I thought that was a really neat little touch. And granted, like the Moraloon thing was both a surprise but not a surprise in a sense to where when Spider-Man wouldn't let him, he kept trying to talk to him and Peter kept punching him. I went, okay, I think I know what they're going to do. And I went, okay, that's fine. It's a different of a twist. I like it. I love seeing Shahara. I'm so bad with names. I love her. Thank you. I love Shafra. I've said that before. I think it's great. I thought it was also funny that he gave her a little minion.
That's Annie. Yes.
Annie Mac.
Did you not read Edge of Spider-Verse?
No.
You fucking idiot.
Oh!
I didn't even know. I didn't know that was Annie. But then when someone said it was, I looked back and I was like, oh yeah, the coloring and the name is a play on Spiderling and.
No, we shouldn't have to read a fucking miniseries to understand what's happening in the first issue of a new title.
I don't disagree.
That being said, this is the thing about comics that people need to relax about. I think that I would eventually have found out, and the beauty of mainstream comic books is they would say, go see Edge of Spider-Verse. Like, oh, cool, I have a reason to read that.
Surprised it wasn't an editor's note.
Now. I agree with that was a Nick Lowe misstep. So that being said, I would have figured it out eventually. Like, for instance, I was trying to read the new Submariner story today, and I'm like, oh wait, this is not in continuity. Okay, I'm done. I love Cantwell. It was really hard for me to stay. I was like, yeah, I'm good. I just don't care at this point. So yeah, I really like this issue. I think together they played a really good team, and there's a lot of different characters. Bagley's great at drawing ensemble. Go look at his New Warriors run, man. That's a great book. Underrated 90s book. Everyone likes the crap on it because it's Marvel 90s, but that was a really fun book. Fabian and him really they did a great job. So yeah, I think it's a good solid story, man. I don't think there's any problems with this one. I think it's pretty, maybe has a little bit too much going on in it, but at the same time, Dan Slott it fit right into Spider-Man. I thought it was great. So yeah, it's good to have Slott back on Spider-Man.
So my main problem with the book is like I said earlier, the first third of the book where Peter's just doing Spider-Man stuff. I really like that. I think Slott actually had a pretty good voice for Spidey. But then we did Spider-Verse stuff, and it might just be I'm not a huge fan of Spider-Verse stuff on principle. I didn't like the first Spider-Verse, and I didn't like Spider-Geddon. So it's like, oh boy, we're going back to the well that I don't like already for the third time. You have to read these, like, you have to buy $15 worth of lead-ins to this issue, and they're not very good. And it's like, oh, we're doing Spider-Verse again, I guess. Shoot me. What do you think, Adam?
Yeah, I mean, I've seen that before. People are like, oh, I like the first third, but then the Spider-Verse stuff lost me. Personally,
yeah, I know Feedy said that.
I was thinking of that. I saw that he said that. So, like, I mean, I don't necessarily disagree with that. Like, I think I like that he, like, solved a regular crime or whatever, but I just did not personally, I did not like. I just don't like. I don't think I like Slott's voice for the character in costume. To me, it was just something about it. Just not. It just doesn't gel with me. Like I just thought that it was too much. Like he's too like, jokey. Like, I mean, I get the joke thing. Everyone, has their own opinions on that. I get that he's supposed to be jokey, but something about this was just like it was making me cringe. Like, and not in like a not
in a haha Spider-Man funny.
Yeah, in like a and I don't really enjoy this. It's too much for me. The Spider-Verse stuff is whatever. This feels like it's just like prep for the new movie, and the new movie was supposed to come out this month, so I don't know. But the art, Bagley's good. I like the colors actually. I like this palette better than I think I've said before. I'm not really a huge fan of the colors on Romita Jr.'s work in the main book, and I think actually I kind of like this palette better, and I think it would maybe fit Romita Jr.'s work a little more.
I don't know. I think they're both too oversaturated for Romita Jr. I think he needs. Who did the colors for JMS during?
That was I can't remember his name. I had the name, but the thing is, I feel like that guy that was very bright too. I think was it Wes Abbott or was that the letterer? I don't know, but the colorist in the JMS run was a very bright palette too. That I think worked for that run. So
I don't know. I feel like if they just stuck with Brian Reber,
right?
They would.
Yeah, he's good. Yeah. I don't know. It's just, I mean, it's okay. I feel like there's a reason this isn't in the main book. Well, it's because Slott isn't driving the bus of the main book, but
yeah. Well,
it's just like I feel like SpiderVerse isn't the huge draw that it was the first time. And the first time, your mileage may vary on that, but like Slott was in charge of the book, and it was like, it was a big deal. And now it's just kind of like, all right, we're doing it again.
I loved the original Spider-Verse story, and I know you guys were kind of hit and miss on it. It was definitely long-winded. There was a lot going on. There's too many side stories, but the main story I really liked. I thought there was a really powerful stuff in there, and I loved it.
My main issue, and I think we've talked about this before, Paul, is that Peter is that one Slott focuses way too much on Silk and Spock. Like he's clearly pushing those as like the characters he wants to talk about instead of Peter, and as a consequence, Peter comes off. He flip flops from being like Giga Chad, I'm in charge now, to like being pistol whipped every time someone talks dirty to him. And most of the crowning moments that like should have gone to Peter went to Otto, and they feel unearned as a result.
It's been a while since I've read it. I loved it back in the day, so it's hard for me to really say like I don't remember the emphasis on Silk, to be honest. I remember Otto and Spider. I remember Otto
take it from someone who loves Silk,
right? No, and it's your perception, and that's you're entitled to. I don't know if I don't remember thinking that. I remember Otto being heavily emphasized, and I remember that I liked the parallel and the juxtaposition between Peter and Otto in that issue. But with this issue in particular, you're talking about his voice, Adam, and it's interesting. I do agree that his voice is it's almost too on the nose. And
that's what I'm saying.
I think that's where a lot of people don't like his Spider-Man. And I can understand that. I think he definitely goes overboard a little bit more. For me, he treads the line, but he does it well enough to where I don't mind it. But there was a couple moments here I was reading this issue where I knew you guys were going to have complaints about his characterization of Spider-Man in the costume. Like I was like, and not you particularly, Adam, but one of you guys or most of you guys would say, yeah, some of the things you said I don't really like. It's the emphasis of he's just almost too over the top. Like he's almost like Ace Ventura. It feels like not Ace Ventura, but like
he is kind of a Jim Carrey. He looks like Jim Carrey.
No. There is a Jim Carrey element, and in all seriousness, that I think that you guys are picking up on. That I think that Slott, me, he treads that line okay. I don't mind it. So
I like a little more subtlety and a little less hyperactiveness.
It feels like Slott's trying to channel Peter David without recognizing that part of what made David work so well was the dry wit rather than like being the mask. If we're Jim Carrey references.
It's interesting you bring that up because after reading, I'm in the late '80s now. My Spider-Man run. I'm dead set in the McElhaney, Todd McFarlane, where Jerry Conway is Conway. I just love Conway. And it's interesting because as I'm reading these comic books, there's more subtlety to Peter's, and dry wit with Peter David, with all what you guys are saying. I definitely see what you're saying. If you grew up reading those comics in the '90s, he definitely is more. He's jokey and he's ridiculous, but he's not as in your face. But I don't think that was always the case necessarily in the '70s. He was definitely a little bit more. He had his moments of being ridiculous. I would say not quite to Slott's level, but it's there, especially in Marvel team-ups. In Marvel team-ups. Oh God!
I think part of the issue, and you might disagree with me, Paul, is Bendis, not necessarily Ultimate Peter, because I think that Ultimate Peter had the dry wit of David and of the '80s, but
I haven't read much of Ultimate Peter to be fair.
But when he was on the Avengers, but I think what got Peter into being like the Jim Carrey jokester was being on the Avengers, because he had to essentially fight his way into a niche on the team to make himself stand out, and Bendis made him into a quipster. Just the guy who
across the board on Spider-Man in general. God, that looks so terrible. Sorry guys, I'm working on my lighting for those that are audio listeners. Here's my thing. I am kind of semi-fascinated as to how Dan Slott reacts to being in the passenger seat on Spider-Man. That's partly what I am intrigued by. I agree with the over-the-top jokes, right? But I'm interested to see Slott being forced to play in a sandbox that is not his own creation. Because even with Brand New Day, he was still heavily involved with the creation of that status quo. So I'm interested to see how he's taking let's use an example, David Michelinie and J.M. DeMatteis approach, right? Where you had DeMatteis on Spectacular, Michelinie was on Amazing. Michelinie was driving the bus, but DeMatteis is over here doing his own thing with Harry Osborn, right? And they reflect back, a little bit back and forth with each other, but they're both still doing their own things. And Todd's obviously doing Todd things over on Adjectiveless, and
Todd definitely does Todd things on Adjectiveless.
Yeah,
yes, that's one way of putting it.
And then Webb never could find its footing. That's why
once Conway leaves, it gets. I mean, there are some moments that are fun, but when Conway leaves Webb and starts doing the crossover between Speck and Webb, it just goes to shit.
When Conway leaves, it kind of meanders until Mackie gets on there. And then that's really the start of Mackie's run on Spider-Man, because he would jump from Webb over to Adjectiveless once Larson left after several fill-ins. And then he stayed on Spider-Man until the reboot. So, Adjectiveless Spider-Man. Which brings me back to this. So, it's going to be interesting for me to see, how does Dan Slott deal with reflecting a status quo that is not his own? I thought he did a really good job integrating the status quo of Amazing into this book. I was semi-impressed, because he could have easily set this not at the current time. He could have said it in that 6-month period, but the no-go zone right now on Amazing. So I really think that this is it's a solid start. I'm interested to see what happens in the next issue. I feel like the next issue is going to be nothing but exposition. So I hope it doesn't grind the story to a halt.
Yeah, two issues in, they can't afford to grind the plot to a halt.
I am really curious to see what happens beyond this first arc. Yes, it's being solicited as an ongoing, but is it really an ongoing? I
give it 12 issues.
Yeah, I'm thinking 12.
maybe 18. They want to get their 3 trades in.
Yeah, so I am kind of the belief that, and with Bagley, you could potentially do that in a year. I mean, he's done 18 issues a year in the past. So I thought the artwork was good. I'm not as critical about the colors as Neil is, but
I don't hate them. I just think that I think Bagley works with a more muted palette.
Yeah. I am a Bagley shill, so I will.
He'll defend whoever he has to get that Bagley.
Direct into my veins. Okay. Some great action poses with the suit in this issue. I like how he draw Moreland. This is some of my favorite artwork involving Moreland that I've seen since the Romita Jr. The first time we saw Moreland. So I'm good. It's a B. Did I say B plus or B minus?
You said B minus, I think.
Minus.
Okay. Venkman, they hurt me right here. The colors hurt me right here.
Damn it, Vic. So I got everything's full screen, so that's part of the reason that Mike.
Also, thank you, Venkman, for saying it was Dan Kemp, because yes, it was Dan Kemp. And I forgot that, and I was thinking about it recently, and yes.
Thank you, Venkman. Okay, so since we're here...
Doom. Sorry you mentioned McFarlane adjectiveless. I felt I was legally obligated.
Okay, so... I guess my mom's asking me to do something for her real quick.
Yeah, we can. All right, so let's.
Day, but I'm gonna open this up. I've got a little surprise. I did a little graphic because we've been kind of jumping in between plot points on the post Beyond stuff. So I have compiled everything we know so far into a graphic, and we'll talk about it in a bit. But I got to go help my mom.
Oh, all right. So we know that for those that are audio listeners, I'll read this out. MJ leaves. The glowing guy from Beyond is involved? ? MJ is broken up with Peter at the same time? ? Peter tries to get her back, but nobody wants to help him. Who gave him this tactic? Norman somehow helps. Steals from the Fantastic Floor from the FF with no plan. There's an incident in New York, Pennsylvania. Peter vanishes and ghosts everybody, Randy and Gog in particular. Randy is still paying for Peter's apartment somehow. Aunt May loses her apartment paying Peter's debts. Peter then reappears as an absolute mess. MJ is suddenly with Paul. Paul punches him. How much of this takes place over how much of the 6 months? How long was Peter gone for? Who are the kids that MJ has? Who is Paul? Why is Zeb mess with Felicia's growth from McKay? Yeah, we'll definitely be talking about that in today's issue. Can you hear me now, Mr. Comics? Complaining about the video ending or freezing.
I hear everything. I hear you.
The
everybody.
Numbers are still ticking on the clock, so I am assuming that we are still live. And I'm not getting a little thing on from the Comcast overlords, gremlins. But all that being said, that it is interesting. We have all these questions that we're not going to potentially get answers to. All right, I'll briefly recap the Judgment Day thing, and then Neil can. Or hang on, Neil's back. All right, so Neil, briefly tell us what the hell Judgment Day is, because I went through and read this Beyond stuff.
Okay. Okay, I'm gonna do it without hoping that Paul gets mad at me for trying to explain this. Okay, so basically, you know that Dead Celestial the Avengers have been shacking up
Yes.
in Aaron's run. Okay,
Vaguely, but yes.
so the Eternals like that. They don't like that the Avengers are living in Celestial's moving castle. And they definitely don't like the X-Men right now because the X-Men can resurrect now, and that's essentially what's, I guess, excessive deviation that demands culling. And Druig, who is in the Prime Eternal now, is a petty little bitch, so he decides, I'm going to go kill the mutants. So he sends Thanos' angsty grandpa...
Else right now.
What?
I'm just joking.
So Druig unleashes Thanos' angsty grandpa Uranos to Mars to ruin Arakko, which is a mutant colony that was terraformed on Mars, and sends 6 Pokemon called the Hex to assault Krakoa. So the Avengers and X-Men, along with a sect of Eternals led by Ajak and Makari, who now look like their movie versions, say, hey, you know what? Let's turn on the dead robot that we have in the North Pole. Nothing bad can come of this. So they reactivate the dead Celestial, called the Progenitor, and it says, you know what? Humanity, you're a bunch of little idiots. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to give you 24 hours, and I'm going to judge every single one of you. I'm going to give you a thumbs up or a thumbs down, but you will be judged, and if more of you are unworthy than you are worthy, humanity go bye-bye, and that includes Eternals and Deviant. And I guess Deviants and mutants. Hi, Waylon. How you doing, buddy?
Sorry, I forgot to mute.
What?
So you got to hear his heavy breathing / panting.
Yeah, so that's more or less what leads into Judgment Day. As of now, the Progenitor has decided, y'all dying. And the Avengers, X-Men, and Eternals are leading an assault on the inside to destroy it and save Earth. Everyone's dead, though, so I don't know what they think that's going to accomplish. But we all know they make it out okay because issue 11 of Amazing Spider-Man happens. So
that's true. All the drama of this. All right.
You're only reading Judgment Day for the X-Men. You want to know who makes it out alive out of that. So, but we all know. Well, no, all the X-Men make it out alive too because issue 15 of X-Men's come out already, and they're just dealing with the Children of the Vault. So,
yep. All right. Paul, you can return. All right. So here's the thing.
Paul hates everything I like. So if I have to describe something in detail, he'll run away.
so I'll brief synopsis. The ghost of Gwen Stacy haunts Peter. Shenanigans ensue. Ghost of Gwen Stacy also haunts
Norman, who looks like he just had a stroke.
Yeah. Which is now a new emote on
our Discord server. Yeah.
Because
it's Norman time.
It's Norman time. So basically,
also real quick, this isn't the ghost of Gwen Stacy. So it just takes the shape of people that are close to you. It's the Celestial. It's the glowing red eye.
Yeah, so it's the Celestial that takes the place of, and so
it takes the form of Gwen Stacy to judge Peter through that lens.
Yeah. Judging Peter through the lens. May is seeing Ben.
Kamala Khan is in this issue, and she sees Carol Danvers.
Yes.
And Norman. Well, I don't know if Norman loves Gwen, but it's definitely someone who is not near and dear. What's the word?
There's guilt.
They're very in his mind, and as a reward for passing. And this is something that's not happened in any of the other Judgment Day stuff. Like Cyclops got a thumbs up, and the Celestial just watched as Cyclops like strutted away from the Celestial. But in a very weird twist, the Celestial gives Peter the thumbs up, and lets him see the real Gwen, not a clone, but like as she died, Gwen Stacy in her death clothes.
Yes.
Eat my ass. Norman has a stroke when he sees that Gwen is there. He says, "You know what? Stop it. You're fine. Everything is fine." As Gwen says, "What did you do to me in Straczynski's run?"
I mean, Greg did say in the comments, Norman has very fond fake memories of boinking Gwen.
He knows her smell. Sniffing Norman.
Okay, all right. Paul, are you back?
Paul, you can come back.
Hello, Paul. All right.
I am back. I'm watching the Kraken.
Okay, we've done a synopsis of ASM 10.
So 20 minutes? Sweet.
Maybe in Cali time. Texan time, that was like 3 minutes at most.
No, I was listening the whole time. I was very, very, very impressed. So, I was, seriously.
All right, let's start with grades real quick, and then we'll go around the horn. So let's start with you, Paul. I want to hear what you got to say about this one.
Am I doing a grade and my review?
No, just the grades, and then we'll open the panel up to discussion.
I'm going to give this one an A+. Wait, hold on. I forgot about the art.
A-. Yeah, you're cutting out a lot. I don't know what's going on with your mic.
It's the AirPods.
Sorry, guys.
All right. Neil, your grade?
I'm giving it a C.
Oh, surprise.
I got a lot to talk about with the art.
Adam.
I got a lot to talk about.
As he strokes his chin.
I think I'll give it a B+.
Okay, B+. All right, Adam's grade. My grade is not a B-. I'm sorry, it is a B+ as well. I am on the same page as Adam in regards. It would be an A+, but I'm sorry, the artwork is just not that good.
I want to talk about the art because I've read this artist's art. I've looked at this artist's art before. This is nowhere near his best.
I don't think it's terrible though. Personally,
its redemption comes in its unintentional comedy. The stuff with like Norman looking like he's turning into a JoJo's Bizarre Adventure character.
It's like, yeah, the thing is like that I mean, okay, that right there is probably, well, it's questionable. But it is funny. And the thing is, I honestly like the art. Like I'm thinking I'd be interested if like this guy, I'd be interested to read more Spider-Man or more any superhero really with this guy's art. I don't think it's bad at all. I think it's pretty refreshing actually.
So, okay. I have an opinion that's very specific to Judgment Day overall as an event, and as someone who is reading the event, I kind of have a unique perspective on this.
Yes.
I think Gwen, like when this issue was first announced, I remember the collective sigh of just let Gwen stay dead. I'm tired of this. And now that we know how the progenitor works, like we've seen it do this with other characters. Captain Marvel, it was Carol and her sister's mom, L'Oreal, or was it Laurel? I don't remember. But basically, we know how the mechanics work. It's through someone you love. I think Gwen was a pretty good choice overall. I still have people who I think would have been better choices and not have rewarded Marvel's dead Gwen fetish.
Yeah.
I think John DeWolf would have been a better choice if, as far as being the death that Peter had the least control over. If that makes, I know Paul's looking at me like I'm insane, but. What are you doing?
Continue.
But as far as the mechanics of Judgment Day as we've seen so far, this was very internal. This was very consistent with how the event is portrayed in other books, especially in the main X titles. And I did like how Peter is revisiting characters he hasn't talked with in a while. He hasn't talked with Miles in the ASM titles since I think like midway through Spencer's run, the end of Last Remains. We got some follow up with Jonah. We got some follow up Aunt May, and Peter and Aunt May have fully made up. I appreciate that. He's got a bit with Randy, that I like. I don't know. I like I said, I kind of feel like I'm rewarding Marvel's obsession with Gwen.
I think
it's not bad, but
I don't think this. I mean, this wasn't like. I mean, it. I don't know if you. I think that's. I don't really know what to say here because you're like, oh yeah, the rewarding the obsession. I mean, I feel like this was not like.
Not even close.
Yeah, maybe. I
So
mean, I think it was fine. Like this was my thoughts on the issue are basically it's a pleasant, character-focused bottle episode, and it's just a nice issue.
The problem is that overall, and one of the reasons I don't give this a higher grade is because it grinds the overall narrative to a halt.
I do want to talk about that a little bit
as fair.
As far as the mystery box goes and advancing those plot lines.
We get a crumb. We get a crumb of info.
And I added that to the chart, the graphic that I assume the one that Peter is talking about that he lost was MJ, and that whatever he did that caused him to do a crater in York was to get her back.
Right.
I don't know how Paul factors into that. Not you, Paul, the character Paul. I don't know how Paul factors into that or the exact circumstances were, but we do know that, or we can infer that what Peter did was to get MJ back in her good graces with him.
Mm-hmm.
And then it failed miserably.
And I'm hoping Dark Web will kind of shine some light on that, but the problem is that
now they already confirmed at New York Comic Con it's going to be after Dark Web.
Yeah, I know.
But Dark Web could really hint heavily what's going on too.
The Mary Jane Black Cat issue apparently is going to deal with something.
And side note on that, I'm a little upset that we're having to go into a satellite book to get resolution on that specific plot line.
But we don't know if it's resolution. It could be expanding too.
But that's also I don't want to go to a satellite title for that.
But yeah, but Black Cat's, you love Black Cat. Like she's her own character, and like she's integrated now, especially with Spider-Man. I don't want to get too far spoilers, but Spider-Man's newfound rekindle. There's potential for her to more crossover for these characters to be together. So I don't begrudge it. I understand, like, for people who have money issues, and that does suck. But I understand because we complain about we want to have more female representation in characters, and we want that, and I think we need this. If we just have this in Spider-Man comic books all the time, I'd rather have their own book and we can support it and like have them really flesh out their relationship because. I don't want to be honest. I don't want to have the Spider-Man book that just be mainly Spider-Man, or excuse me, Black Cat, Mary Jane. I'd rather have it be their own book like this. So I don't mind that as much, me personally.
Well, I'm just thinking on the logic of like I don't want it to go read it. Okay, so imagine this, like Paul. Imagine if you started reading a plotline of Avengers, right? Mm-hmm. And then without warning, they said, "Hey, go read. Give me a book. I guess go read West Coast.
Go read Iron Man."
Yeah, go read Iron Man to find out how this.
I did it all the time in the 90s.
I don't like that. That was like the 90s at its worst. Was when they passed off.
That's comic books though. That is mainstream comic books 101.
Okay, I mean, I can't disagree with you. I don't think it's a good thing, but I can't disagree with you that.
I don't. It can be good and a bad thing. It depends on how it's executed. I mean, I don't. Listen, I get you're not wrong. We're both not wrong. That's the thing. We're both not wrong. The problem is that when you have these many characters, you can't, and you're trying to progress story, you can't just have it all in one issue. And if you do, it's like it's going to be a mess. I'm all about compressing things and getting more bang for my buck. But if I'm going to get Spider-Man book, I want Spider-Man in it. And if you're going to progress and try to build a story, the one shots have been pretty good. I mean, the Black Cat Mary Jane issue we read for when Spider-Man was out of commission was great, wasn't it? So
yeah, but they build that as like a part of Beyond.
This is a part of the thing. So I don't know. I just listen. If it sucks, then yeah, it wasn't worth it. If it's good, then hey, we win.
It's gonna be my case, so I think it's gonna at least be good on a technical level. But I don't know. I feel like this is just Zeb Wells' excuse to finish up his Hellions plot points. But actually, okay. So real quick,
Thank you for that.
So Radiac actually brings up a good question, and this is kind of a question I had with Judgment Day as far as issue 5, I think, or issue 4, and he doesn't understand how the judgment works. That Dr. Doom gets a pass, but Cap and Daredevil don't. I thought Daredevil did pass because it's meant to represent how the person views themselves. Peter wouldn't pass because of how he is as a character. So okay. So this is something I kind of figured out through trial and error as Judgment Day, the event, went on, is that the progenitor gives you a thumbs up if you're willing to sacrifice for the right cause or for the cause you think is just. And he gives you a thumbs down if you do like a win it all, no strings attached victory. Like Cyclops got a thumbs up mostly because of his conviction and willing to sacrifice everything to be judged in a court of his peers. Dr. Doom gets a pass because he's willing to sacrifice everything to cure his obsession with Richards. Cap got a thumbs down and Daredevil got a thumbs down because while they believe in a cause, they want to win it with no strings attached. If that makes sense. I don't feel like anyone's paying attention.
No, I don't disagree.
I just, to be honest, Neil, I'm paying attention, but I don't really care about the other books.
But that's what I'm saying is it's an event tie-in, and that's why you have me here to explain what's going on in the event books.
What the B plus for me too was the fact that it's an event tie-in that was done extremely well. And we as Spider-Man fans have been very fortunate over the last several years for when they've done event tie-ins that they have done them fairly well. Even last issue was a well-done event tie-in.
Now, granted, the Hellfire Gala one, ASM number 9, it falters a bit if you're reading it just with no context whatsoever. But
I agree with that.
If you read it as Act 3 of a 3-act story, Hellfire Gala is Acts 1 and 2, and then ASM number 9 is Act 3. Yeah. It reads a lot better, but it on its own as a isolated issue, it falls flat. And that's the same vein for this book, is that it's a good character study, but you need to understand the mechanics of how Judgment Day works as a broader event before you can understand what the hell is going on. Like if you just see like this glowing this Gwen Stacy corpse with one glowing red eye, and then you see like Captain Marvel with the glowing red eye, you have no idea what's going on. They kind of blow through the explanation really early on with Iron Man explaining things to Peter, but they don't really explain the mechanics of it very well. You kind of have to read the main event to understand what's going on.
Yeah, agreed.
I didn't really have a problem with it.
Yeah. Can I?
Yeah, but Radiac. But I think Radiac is evidence that there is a group of people who still don't understand. If they haven't read Judgment Day,
sure,
Radiac has, but there are still some people who don't understand how the progenitor is passing judgment. And granted, until you kind of recognize that pattern of willingness to sacrifice for the right cause or for a cause you think is good, it's very arbitrary and inconsistent. Kamala gets a pass for beating the crap out of Captain Marvel because she thinks he's an imposter. Miles gets a thumbs up because he gave a thumbs up to Peter. There's not until you realize the kind of methods of the progenitor's madness, it's very hard to understand the actual mechanic of it. And you can just chalk it up to the arbitrary nature of a multi-million-year-old celestial just parked on Earth's North Pole.
Can I talk about the issue now? Is that cool?
That's fine.
When I read this issue, I was very interested in what you were going to say about this, Neil, because I know you're very anti the whole Gwen Stacy or driving home the whole idea that this whole. Can you get rid of the big thing here? It's really distracting. Sorry, that's okay. Sorry, I get my ADHD goes into overdrive, that kind of stuff.
I understand.
So one thing I would say about, and I was very curious because I'm with you. I don't think cheapen Gwen Stacy completely. And I would say Ghost Spider, even though I love Ghost Spider and my daughter loves Ghost Spider, and I think it's awesome. I think she's awesome. You do cheapen Gwen Stacy's death a little bit by her existence. I think it's fine now. It's better now. But definitely, you've definitely gone that well so many times with Clone Conspiracy, with all that stuff, right? So I say all that because this issue, I was like, okay, what does this mean? I had no idea what I was getting into. Zeb Wells did a phenomenal job of explaining what's going on and using Gwen's presence without having to go to the well of like, let's make Peter feel guilty. No. It was literally a ghost. Like it's just a personification of Gwen.
It's just the robot. It's just the robot right. Using her corpse as a puppet.
Right. But what's interesting is that it's what they interpret her as, for themselves, right? That's what's so fascinating about it. And I think that was really cool because Peter was dealing with this whole guilt thing and, what was his faults and whatnot. And it really was a great character study of Peter Parker himself. And I really like that. And I'll be honest that I love the ending of it too with Norman. I to be honest, I was not into the whole Norman being a good guy kind of a thing. And obviously it's going to come to an end at some point, but
it's already started. You can already see the cracks in the foundation with this issue.
Right. But what's great is that you do see there's cracks, like you said, but yeah, I don't know. I like the fact that you're using this to really show what's going on in his head. And I think with Peter and everything, it was just a really well done issue of really getting to know the characterizations of everyone. J. Jonah Jameson, Peter,
Randy.
Yeah, exactly. It was a really, really great issue. If you're just getting to know these characters for the first time, I think it was really well done. And now the art, I gave it an A-. I actually like the art. My problem with the art was Peter's face for the most part.
It looks rushed.
I wouldn't see that, but I agree with that too. But the thing is, Gwen Stacy looks great. Like she looks adorable. I thought he did I thought the female drawings were fantastic.
On that point, I did like when she's like, Peter, you look so old, and then you see her and you see him, and that was actually perfect because he does look old. He does look significantly older than her.
Puppy.
And sorry, I'm watching the Kraken game while we're talking. But the thing is, with all that, I thought they did it was one of the better tie-ins. And Zach, you were touching on it, and I was very curious what you all thought because I thought, to me, it was a perfect usage of Gwen Stacy without, I think, perverting and just bashing the whole idea of Gwen. It was using the idea of Gwen without using her directly, and more so depending on their personifications of their interpretation and what they remember of Gwen, and not just, I'm Gwen Stacy. Hi, what's up?
I kind of want to touch on that, Paul, because I know I've made my bit going on about Saint Gwen, and I think for the most part, on a broader franchise level, my opinion remains the same. But this issue, there's other people I would have used just because I don't want to use Gwen anymore. They do a good job contrasting Peter and Norman and using Gwen as kind of a vehicle for Peter to vent about why he's giving Norman the second chance. And then it transitions to Norman where he's like, oh God, she's alive. I got to get out of here. And then you see like Gwen with like Satan eyes standing behind him. But I think that given that contrast between Peter and Norman, where Peter uses Gwen's reappearance as closure to move on, Norman uses it as, he doesn't use it, but it prompts sort of like a momentary lapse in his image. Like on that second to last panel on the last page, it looks like a supervillain straightening his tie. Like it's a momentary lapse back into Norman Osborn, or to the Norman Osborn that we know and love. Okay, get that off the screen. But in the vein of contrasting Peter and Norman's reaction and how they use and react to Gwen's presence as Peter's judge is a much more effective one when you have the full context of the issue.
You know, and one of the things I want to say too about the art is I just think some of the faces, like you said, Neil, were rushed, because I think, with the exception of Miles's costume, but I just don't like Miles's costume.
That costume is dog shit.
It's so bad. Get it out of here.
Sorry.
Get it out of here,
it's
bro.
not good.
So
We're
bad.
losing it. We're losing it when his book relaunches. So that's good.
God,
Hallelujah.
Garbage bag costume is not good. That's all I gotta say.
The Steve Jobs, the metrosexual.
He does
Steve
look like
Jobs
he's
costume
wearing
needs to leave.
pajamas.
It's literally a garbage sack for his body suit. So
I present derelict.
pretty much. So which I love that reference, by the way. I love me some Zoolander. The one thing I would say about the art is I love the costumes. Like his drawing the costumes. Like his Iron Man's cool. I really like his Spider-Man, to be honest. I think he draws a great Spider-Man. Like
it looks like it kind of looks like he added the Oscorp tweaks after the fact, potentially, but
it felt like on the artwork side that this was given at the 11th hour, and he was given 2 weeks to try to get this churned out because they realized they needed a Judgment Day tie-in.
If this is 2 weeks in, then this guy should be doing Spider-Man on the reg.
Yeah.
Let's be
I
real.
don't think it's it's probably like a month or so before.
But still,
my main comparison.
It's good. It's good.
My main comparison is Dragota's previous work. Like he and Hickman did East of West together, and that art is phenomenal.
Didn't he do that?
Yeah, he
FF
did East
book?
of West, and he.
No, but he did that FF book, didn't he?
I think so. And then he did an issue, and then he did a couple of pages for the last issue of Hickman's X-Men run before Dugan took over. But I think this was last minute, and it's not like I'm going to kill myself because this art is so bad, but this definitely needed another pass in the editor's room.
The faces. I think it's mainly Peter and Norman's faces. Norman's a little more exaggerated than I think he probably should be honest. I mean,
in that one panel, perhaps, but it also
that page where Peter's like, Norman, I said leave. No.
Peter's face is a little long and thin. Like his faces are a little too long and thin, I think, for them. Sometimes it's not consistent. But that being said, again, I love the Spider-Man and the Iron Man. I think his Gwen Stacy is really good, to be honest. I actually like his Gwen Stacy a lot. So
I think it's also the idealized version of Gwen. Like it's very pure. It's very soft.
Look at this picture of Gwen. Like that is a gorgeous picture of Gwen.
That's what I'm saying. Is that that's the way Peter visualizes Gwen. She's very pure, very of her age when she gone before her time.
Right.
And then when Norman comes into the when Norman comes into the is it a factory floor? I don't know. When he comes into the assembly bay, like. You notice like she ages like a lot, like the dimples on her face, like you can see more creases.
Just look at this. This page in particular is just great, man. Like that is there's some great layouts, man. I loved. This is great. This right here is fantastic, and that's why I'm like, if we can get fix up a little bit of Peter's face, then
I think also the negative space is also an issue because like in the panels where it's close up on Peter and there's not a whole lot going on, like the page where Peter just shouts at Norman to leave, there's just negative space all around him. Is it the police on your but in the pages where there's just like empty vacuum spaces, you showed the pages where Peter's explaining himself to Gwen and she's passing judgment on him. It works a lot better because there's a lot more black on the page and it's taking up more negative space, so it's allowed to, I guess, distract you from the longer faces.
Yeah, I think that like negative space, I don't really mind as much. Like to be honest,
I'm just talking on a technical level.
Yeah, I get it. Like, and there's some of his faces are just not great in this, but I think it's a rush job to be honest. Like you guys were all saying, that it has to be it.
I do
So
like how he visualizes Norman, though. I do like that. Like, even though Norman
I
is
agree.
a better character, I do like the weird super villainy face that he gives Norman consistently. There's that third to last panel before the issue ends where it's like he's obviously like it looks like he's having a stroke, but other than that, I don't think there's anything overly egregious in the book. Like I said, it probably could have used like another go through in the editor's room.
Well, I think that I actually liked the look of Norman myself as well. I thought that there was like a mischievous, like you didn't know if you could trust him kind of look and vibe to him, but it worked for the character, and I think it works for what they're doing right now with the story. And I liked the way he drew that. To be honest, I just think again, to me, Norman's face a little bit too long. That's kind of my.
He kind of looks like Harry.
You know what? I felt I felt the longer face kind of worked for Norman, in a weird twist. Oh, I muted Zach. I think no, you're not muted.
On the board. There's a sense of derangement with Norman, so
I like it. He's kind of the weird thing is that Ramita Jr. kind of implied that Norman was kind of like blank slate. I'm a totally good guy. He's kind of like sensitive Norman in Spencer's run. Kind of unequivocally just I'm a good guy now. But I do like that in this issue and the next one, they give Norman a bit more edge to his design, where like they use a lot more sharp angles to give the impression that maybe there's cracks in the foundation. I don't know. I don't know. Anyone got anything to add to that? I don't know.
I think there's nuance, and I'll talk about that more in the next issue. All right, let's go to our final issue of the night.
All right, I'll keep this one brief too because I know Paul's
First.
looking at me. All right, Amazing Spider number.
I gotta run though. So.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
but I can be as long as I want. Hell yeah.
Yeah, hell yeah. Really
All right.
quick.
Give us your thoughts on it first.
I thought today's issue was pretty cool. I gotta tell you, JR's art is just so good.
I got some caveats, but I think his layouts are still bar none.
Man, he's like, and it's not perfect, but it just feels good. And
I thought this one was like a step above some of the past ones.
Yeah, I feel like his faces they're starting to. It's just more consistency overall.
Yep.
I feel like he's starting to him and Zeb are starting to kind of vibe together. It feels like, I think, story wise. After reading a bunch of 80s and 90s comic books and reading the latest stuff, it's really hard for me to like. I don't like the non-condensed storytelling. I don't like elongated everything. This issue really did feel a little more akin to the 80s style, where they're giving me a lot of information, and it's perfectly placed enough to where I'm like, okay, lots of going on. I like that. I love this new Hobgoblin thing he's got going on. This is back, baby. We got Hobgoblin back.
That splash page of the Hobgoblin, which it won't be the cover for this issue or for this episode, but probably will end up being an emote on the Discord.
Legit, man.
It's just freaking awesome. Now my Apple AI cuts off his crotch for reasons. But no, I thought that the artwork was really good. I agree with you. So
yeah, I think it's great, and I think Spider-Man's in a really good place right now. I think I like the idea of. I think Spencer, like when he was doing Spider-Man, really benefited from having a consistent artist on a regular basis, like Otley. I mean, Otley's great, obviously, but I mean now that we've got Zeb and JR, you're seeing the consistency of having someone and what's the word I'm looking for? having the ability to build off the chemistry of these two people, building that off, and building it together. There's just something to that. And when you have that consistency, you're going to get a lot more just better storytelling overall from both people. So I think Zeb is killing it with Spider-Man. I really do. I think I don't know if he's quite to Spencer's level as far as I think getting the character and being able to add all these really fun things into it. That being said, I think he's not that far off, but this has been pretty impressive what he's been able to do, with the exception of the crappy 6-month thing, which none of us like. So, but besides that, he's killing it, which is saying a lot, because let's be real, that 6-month thing is not great. And if the stories were even like a little bit worse, we'd be really putting this thing over the coals. So, yeah, I'm into it, man. Let's do it.
All right, Paul. Well, we wish you good night. Hopefully you're cracking win.
No, go Kraken and read more comics. See you guys.
Catch him on the Comic Binge YouTube channel, youtube.com/The Comic Binge. So, all right, Neil, give us a brief run. Let's just give it a brief rundown, because we're almost 2 hours right now. We've got one more issue to cover.
Last one.
Yeah, I know.
Okay, so ASM 11, written by Wells, art by John Romita Jr., ink Scott Hanna, and colors Marcio Menez. So Betty finally pushed out that baby. Yes, Winston Leeds is the name of the baby, but it gets kidnapped by Hobgoblin. Meanwhile, at Oscorp, Peter and Kamala Khan, who I guess is a Spider-Man character now. Fuck it. She and Norman are testing out I don't care. She and Peter are testing out a theoretical engine with Norman, who is upset that there's no trial. But a lawyer comes in and talks with Norman, and he storms off. Peter and Felicia then go web swinging. I guess Peter's in his classic costume again. Don't know if that was intentional or not. But he brings up the kiss from ASM 900. Not specific incident, but it's kind of implied. And he asks Felicia out to dinner. And she says maybe, but it means more of a probably. And Peter's like, "Oh, I'm shaking. I was gonna throw up." And he goes home and realizes the debt collector hasn't been around. I'm wondering what that's about. Find out in ASM 14, says Niccolo. Peter gets accosted by Ned Leeds in his apartment and doesn't question how Ned got into his apartment, only that what he wants. And Ned shows pictures of Norman Osborn with Roderick Kingsley, the Hobgoblin. And says you may need to re-examine how you're viewing Norman.
Oops. It was supposed to be this one.
But Peter confronts Norman in front of the Gold Goblin costume. He says, "Hey Norman, I know you want to turn into Pepsi Man, but we need to talk about Roderick Kingsley first." And Norman explains, "Oh, I was going back in my wilder days. I stole all of Roderick Kingsley's business holdings, but I'm going to give them back to him." And at the Red Hook Oscorp warehouse, Norman does return all the documents to him. And then they hear a goblin glider coming, and one of the cars blows up, and a bunch of henchmen get iced, and the Hobgoblin comes out of the smoke. "Tonight, your acrid crop comes to harvest, and madness rides the night wind." Meanwhile, at Betty's apartment, Betty is asleep, and an off-panel voice says, "Don't worry, little Winston. I gave Mommy a little something to help her rest. We did a lot of good work here this evening." It's definitely Goblin Queen, or Queen Goblin, or Gobby Mommy.
Oh, yeah. That makes sense, actually.
To be continued in ASM 12.
All right, great.
Giving it a C.
Ooh. Giving it an A+.
Really? I'll give it a B.
You know what? I'll be nice. I'll give it a B-.
All right, so
I feel like C is kind of my cynical reaction, but we'll talk about that in a minute.
all right, so B- for Neil. All right, so we'll start with me, since I'm probably the most positive on this. Love the artwork. I mean, love it. This, we talk about hitting strides, and Paul kind of alluded to, like, them feeling each other out. This one felt like the apex of them meshing, and I feel like that we're finally cooking with some bacon grease. And I think that there's an excitement level to Ramita drawing Hobgoblin. This is the first time he's drawn a classic Hobgoblin, other than like a ASM 500 situation where it's like a side panel, but like done a featured story with the Hobgoblin since the 80s. Now, caveat: he did draw and design the Cyber Goblin Mackendale costume during the Blood Brothers arc. So it's the first time since Blood Brothers that he has done, which was ASM 68, or no, ASM 68. Add to the Spider-Man number 68, Blood Brothers Part 3. It's Clone Saga. It's like a Rolodex. So definitely really cool to see him draw the Hobgoblin. I'm interested to see how the Kingsley Hobgoblin dynamic is working here. Is this Daniel? Is this, even though Daniel's technically dead?
I think it's Ned.
Me too.
I think it's Ned as well. I think
like they tried to go out of the way. It's like, guys, look, Ned Lee's actually normal, so it can't be him. But that's like saying General Ross wasn't Red Hulk.
right.
That the last we saw of Ned in that storyline in Spencer's run
He had the creepy smile when he went back to Betty.
So it was like what are they gonna do with Ned now? And I would
think this
fairly
is
confidently say that it's Ned.
This is the last loose Spencer plot thread, isn't it?
I think so.
Look, and I don't mind them exploring a Ned Leeds and him not just being a plot point. Because remember, the whole Ned as Hobgoblin thing was added after he died. So we never got to see, the repercussions of that. It was always flashbacks and stuff like Hobgoblin Lives. So again, if we're going off this premise that Ned Leeds is alive,
gotta do something with him.
Right. We might as well do something with this plot thread. So on that end, I really do feel like that may have been a Nick Lowe mandate, bring back Ned or whatever. I'm good with it. I'm good that we finally have had Betty have the baby. Always good to see Betty. Surprised she didn't blow up the apartment, but because that's Betty's MO. She's been known to blow up some apartments in her day. But good to see Betty. I just liked how the interactions with Peter and Norman were. The dichotomy of like, well, let me go help you. Let me be there to help. Like that to me was like, all right, we're playing in this sandbox. I do like the fact that there is some level of continuity, knowing full well that this original suit got destroyed in the Dan Slott story, that he's actually in the original suit. So I think that that's a very nice, subtle thing. Again, more editor's notes in books is not a bad thing, Marvel.
Yeah.
Greg does bring up a good point. He says, meanwhile, Emily Osborn is brought back from the dead and never appears again. LOL.
I like to imagine Kindred took her back to hell. Even though that isn't how it works, but no, I just think that to me again, Hobgoblin, Spider-Man, the scene with Peter and Felicia. Look, as everybody knows, I am an MJ Peter stan. Okay, like I like Peter and MJ together. But if you're going to separate, and part of this is Neil winning me over a little bit to okay, let's explore the space. It would be interesting to see an adult relationship, yeah,
and an adult Peter, how that would work. And it was cute. it actually makes 900 mean something. And I'm okay with, if you're not going to have him with Mary Jane, put him with Black Cat. I'm good with it.
This is kind of the reason why I lowered my grade a little bit. And I know I said this on 900. I was like, you know what? If we're going to try, let's commit to it. Here's my caveats. One, I don't think they're going to commit to it. It's going to be like an obvious placeholder until they wrap up whatever's going on with Dark Web. And then the other is, I didn't think about it when I was talking about ASM 900, but it kind of undoes Felicia's character growth in her solo series, where she was more dedicated to kind of figuring herself out and not necessarily exploring her sexuality, but dealing with other partners than Peter. In the annual, she basically was like, you know, I still love him, I always will, but I might not be the one for him. That's MJ's job. And again, editorial edicts change, but I do feel like her going back to Peter feels a bit like regression in retrospect.
And that may be part of the story too, where they get together, they have dinner, they
decide it doesn't work or something. I don't know.
One of those things where they're sitting there going, "Oh, yeah, like." Because she's become such good friends with MJ. It's interesting to me how the sexual tension was out of jealousy of MJ, and now you've removed that element. So does that chemistry and sexual tension with Felicia and Peter still exist? And to me, there's only a handful of love interests that I think people would be like, all right, fine. And Felicia, I think, is near the
Felicia. If it's not MJ, then Felicia's I know people would say a distant second, but I think she's a pretty close second. I guess if I had to pick a third, I guess Betty.
Yeah.
Like if okay, so let's be honest here. Who else is there? There's Carly Cooper, who no one wants. There's like a bunch of Avengers that no one
wants as a girlfriend, but as a friend, fine. But as a girlfriend, and the way they did it, inorganically forcing it down people's throats.
Carly Cooper, or
problem with Carly. Had they let Carly stand on her own as a character, it's an entirely different story, I think. People would be more receptive to Carly, but the problem with Carly was that she was brought in as love interest number 5.
But that's what I'm saying, though, is the well's been poisoned. Forgive the pun. The well has been poisoned. And I don't think people will accept Carly as a serious love interest. I think that Betty has a better chance of being third place, because Gwen will never... 616 Gwen will never come back aside from being a corpse or a clone who's meant to die. Spider-Gwen has kind of taken over.
Unless they do a complete line-wide reboot and we're starting over.
Yeah, unless we do like a new 52, Gwen is dead. So we're only considering people who are alive. And I think that Betty is the only like third choice. I know. Thanks, Greta. We'll summon Josh in a bit. I think Betty's the only other choice people would accept. There we go.
Oh, damn it. Here's the thing, Vigman. Nobody's going to understand this reference.
Aside from people who get Osborne thirst.
Other than like a very small group of people on our Discord.
You had to be there.
That was a time to be alive. But Radiac brings up a good point. If they actually commit to it, and it looks like they're going to probably commit to it for a little bit, considering that the solicits for the MJ Blackhead book say that Felicia has a old new man in her life.
Oh yes.
We'll talk more about the solicits on the episode.
On the news show, yeah. But I do. If we're gonna go down this path, and I kind of wish we weren't, but if we have to, I'm hoping the book actually commits to it and doesn't just like constantly yank our chain about it.
Agreed. All right.
Do we want to talk about Aren't we all glad that Betty finally shoved out her baby?
Yeah, how did that work? After, well, because
She's been carrying that thing around for like a year.
Yeah, exactly. Like the continuity is dubious. With 900, they should have done. They should have done something else with 900, man.
She was still pregnant in 900. That was hilarious.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, considering like she was visibly pregnant.
Yeah.
Like 9 months. She was 9 months pregnant during Spencer's run.
Yes.
Trimester and Spencer's run. So your 6 month timeline is full of shit. Now, great.
More like 6 weeks. 6 or like yeah.
Women gain a ton of weight in the first trimester into the second. I've seen that. So I'm not saying it's unrealistic, but you're not sitting there looking like you're, about to pop the
for
way
9 months.
For 9 months. Like that's not how that goes. Trust me, as the one person in this room that has successfully procreated with someone,
that's not a me problem. I use condoms.
Yeah, well,
they work.
Yeah.
Oh boy.
Okay. All right. Enough fun. That's why I keep marrying the people that I am. Never mind. All right.
Ooh, you started it. This fight. Sorry, it's not going the way you wanted. What were we talking about?
Condoms, apparently.
It's like Hobgoblin. Hobgoblin's
This
back.
is now
That's
condom
cool.
review. Hobgoblin is a condom.
Listen, Hobgoblin didn't get much of a mirror, but
even though the mystery, one could say the whole mystery of the Hobgoblin is played out in old news and everything, but I will say that I think was sort of the highlight of the book for me, and it actually intrigued me.
It was. I mean, we kind of knew going in that someone was going to be the Hobgoblin, like obviously because there's a Hobgoblin mask. But
yeah,
it was interesting seeing two different Hobgoblins in the same book.
I think it was weird that
it's obvious they're kind of telegraphing it's Ned, even if it's by accident. They're definitely telegraphing that it's Ned.
I do think it was weird though that the recap page mentioned Hobgoblin in like the last sentence when I don't think there has been any build up to any Hobgoblin at all during this run. So it's like, except for this cover. So it's like, why would you throw that out there in the recap when it doesn't?
They're telegraphing.
So I do love the use of Goblins at the Gate continuity with Norman and Kingsley. Like, I do love that it's not like overtly in your face about it, but the fact that they're acknowledging that, because I think that there was a certain segment of fandom that would have been like, dude, he bought all of
Kingsley shit, yeah,
and did it underneath his nose, because basically, since his brother was in was supposed to be in witness protection, Norman just basically came in and said, okay, well, we're going to do a hostile takeover, buy it for pennies on the dollar. It was very much, very reminiscent of how they were trying to do to Marvel in the early 90s. Night Soflo, we'll see you. We probably aren't too far behind you, buddy. He says, good night, guys. I'm tired. So, well, I don't know. Okay, so Greg asked a good question. Is Kingsley a wanted man?
Okay, so when was the last time we saw him in Miles's book? He was arrested in Spider-Woman, Jess's book, when she had the kid. And then he showed up in Miles's book as a member of Prowler's Sinister Six. I don't think we've seen him since. Where are all his franchises, by the way?
Yeah, from the Axis storyline. That was
like before. That was like Slott era. That was
14.
What?
Wasn't it like 2014 Axis?
It was like 2011 or 2012 when he introduced the franchises.
It had been 2012 because they would have talked about it in San Diego when I was there.
Yeah, so he did the hero franchises during Axis when he created Queen Cat, when Lily Hollister and the hero franchises took over. But he started the villain franchises in 2012 at the tail end of Amazing before Superior started.
That's right. That's the last time.
I remember very vividly. It was Kevin Coley who did that issue where he's like, "Hey, how's that Hobgoblin doing? How's his commission holding up?"
Yeah.
I want to see. That was one of the really cool. Yeah,
Radiac.
He and I are on the same level here. Like that was a really good Slott development. Like unironically, a really good development on Slott's part that never really went anywhere.
Yeah, listen, I've talked about this on Make Mine Mayday, the other show here on the channel. I love Kingsley, so like, but mainly because of his characterization by DeFalco and friends is why I love Kingsley so much. So it's one of those things. Yeah, you can find Mr. Comics. You can find Neil at QuillSniv on Twitter. He's having to leave too. We're losing people. So I'm down for a Kingsley Spider-Man story. It's been way too long since we've had him in a proper Amazing Spider-Man book. He hasn't literally appeared since before Superior, so that's been a long time. I'm in. Man, Tomes of Vehicle Podcast is doing a Roderick Kingsley Hobgoblin series on their show. So check that out on after you get done listening to this. Subscribe to that.
I think we should do a Black Cat, like a Jed McKay Black Cat look back now that the entire series has been collected. I'm planning getting the omnibus once that comes out.
Want to do it as a Patreon?
Might be a good idea.
That would be a good idea.
Let's do that for December.
Let's talk about it.
We'll talk about it later. All right. Let's. We're almost.
But I think going into Dark Web, it would be a good idea to talk about it.
Yeah. All right. So, Adam, your thoughts on the issue?
I mean, I don't know. The Black Cat thing is what it is. The art, I think Romita Jr. did hit a stride, like you said, Zach. I think he's. I'm wondering though if it's because of the fact that he had some lead-in time, with these two fill-ins that we just had with, Judgment Day and the Hellfire Gala. But I guess we'll see. I mean, his art's, it's never terrible to me, but I think this was exceptional today.
It felt like classic Romita Jr. I think.
Yeah, I think there were I think Paul said there's more, or someone said it was Paul or Zach or all of us said that there was some more facial consistency, which I think that's what gets a lot of people down on his stuff a lot of the time. So yeah, I don't know. It was a good issue. I don't know. Like I feel like the thing is, I feel like Wells's run is just weird because we have some pretty good plot points going. I think your mileage may vary, but then we have the mystery, and the mystery, I've said it before, like for me the mystery drags it down a lot. I think for all of us the mystery is just kind of like dragging it down for us. I don't know, but it's not, I don't think it's terrible. It's just kind of like we're just impatient for the mystery. We're getting crumbs and we want the full meal already, because it's kind of like there's a huge gap and we don't know anything about what happened there and why are these characters acting the way they're acting now. Is there a good reason for it? Well, we have to wait, and it looks like we're going to have to wait for several more months to get that. But I don't know, the other little things aren't that bad, and they're actually pretty satisfying for the most part. So
yeah, once you move away from the 6 month time gap thing, the story actually becomes pretty enjoyable. I think that I kind of want to touch back on the art again, because I was trying to say something and I didn't want to interrupt. I've always felt that Romita Jr., after his really low dip after Avengers or during Avengers in 2010, he never really kind of rebounded from that. This is the first issue that had the weight of an 80s or 90s Romita Jr. issue. It felt like we were back in that really high point of Romita Jr.'s career. I think it's because of Scott Hanna.
Oh, 100%. Klaus Janson, as much as I love his stuff that he did with John,
his modern work is awful.
His modern inking is not.
He ruined Action Comics. I'm comfortable saying that.
Yeah, his modern inking is just not, and part of that is also a regression with age. These guys are not spring chickens. We're talking about comics that are 30 years old.
60, 80 years old.
Yeah, I mean, like these are, Klaus Janson was inking stuff that's over 20, almost 20, 30 years old. Clone Saga's 30th anniversary is year after next. So, and that's when, he was doing Lost Years. And at this point he was doing Man Without Fear and stuff like that. So, not surprised, but yeah, now Scott Hanna, who has always been a consistent inker. I don't think I've ever seen something that Hanna has inked that I have not liked. In fact, I think he did the early part of Bagley's run on Ultimate, if I remember correctly.
I think so. I think he was the inker for Bagley during Ultimate.
Yeah. So I mean, Scott Hanna, he's done great work with Pat Olive. Mark Bagley. Every single book he's inked, I have enjoyed. I can appreciate the work he puts in. Very old school in that regard. So I think that you add. I also like the fact that this is also a story, much like the first arc, that is very much in the wheelhouse of Romita. It really does play to the strengths. It is the gritty, kind of, grimy, not overly pretty, sort of crime bossy type situation. And I think there was an excitement with Romita, and you can see the excitement when Romita is engaged, especially like you say, since Avengers. When John Romita Jr. is engaged in a story and there's an investment there, Kick-Ass is a good example, then it's very dynamic. And there's certain characters that fit Romita. Batman, I felt like fit Romita a lot more of the time than the rest of his DC work. Spider-Man fits Romita, but you're also getting a Spider-Man story where he gets to draw the Hobgoblin, the character that he co-created with Peter David. Roger Stern. So he gets to come back to that space and work with that. I think that really, really works. I like the colors. I just dug the overall vibe of the issue so much, and that's why I gave it a 9+.
Yeah, I don't think I'd grade it that high, but
I'm legitimately excited to see what happens in the next issue. I like the cover. I think the cover is an effective use of, like, obviously it does kind of tease that Gabi Mami's coming. God almighty, got me doing it now.
And we know he's coming, and we know she's coming back because she's going to be fighting Pepsi Man in Dark Web.
Yeah, and again, I've liked how it doesn't seem overly heavy-handed on terms of, like, we're setting up the spinoffs. Like, sometimes it came across as heavy-handed with Slott, and I feel like that they're doing a little bit better job of that. And again, I understand what you're saying about the Jed MacKay Black Cat stuff. Completely understand. He is look. I don't see, based off of what was said at New York Comic Con, I don't see Zeb Wells going beyond year 2. I think it's going to be about a 50-issue run.
Not even. I think it's going to be 45. Just even trades.
Yeah. 45-issue run. And then
I mean, he might not even make it until the end of next year. I mean, he said the whole thing about the payoff in year 2 or whatever, but like that could be at any point next year.
Yeah.
If you want to get technical and like really nitpicky, like that could be. That doesn't mean like we're gonna have a full year necessarily. It might, but
right,
it might be more 6 months.
Well,
who knows?
I wouldn't be surprised I hope that Jed McKay becomes the next writer. I genuinely hope.
I don't think he's gonna, and I know I want him to be, but I think he's happy doing books where he gets to do whatever he wants. Like Moon Knight and Strange, the one where Clea is Doctor Strange, he's benefited immensely from not being micromanaged by editorial. And I think that Zdarsky in his interview when he was taking over Batman, laid it out that no one wants to work in the Spidey office because it's so micromanaged.
And that's where, if you don't have a vision, like a big vision, then it falls apart. And I also think, because of the nature of the schedule, and I do think this is one benefit of releasing this Slott adjectiveless book, if to attract premium writing talent, you have to go back to a single once-a-month format towards 12 to 18 issues a year.
Please do it. Please.
If that gets somebody like Jed McKay, who has proven himself on ancillary books. I mean, look at what Ziegler did. Ziegler sits there and wrote a backup for Miles, wrote, the ASM during Beyond, and then that gets him the Miles book.
And Greg actually brought a good point up that you can have a vision, editorial will still destroy it.
That's true.
And that might be because of the pandemic and Spencer leaving for Substack more than anything.
But Spencer did have a vision. That's the thing, and that was why he got the book.
And
apparently,
Sapolsky was. They wouldn't have teased One More Day as aggressively as they did unless there was a plan to undo it. I maintain in my heart of hearts that they did plan to undo One More Day, and then Spencer left for Substack, and they were like, okay, now we can get back to breaking them up again.
That's very like sinister, but I mean there's probably some kernel of truth to that.
The question is it a chicken or the egg scenario?
Yeah. We still
Is,
don't really know. Do we really know, like, if Spencer? I feel like we don't really know if Spencer actually left, or
I think there was
he dropped it all, or if he was like, "Hey guys, I'm gonna do," you know what I mean? Like, was there no warning, or I
have a theory
with Chris. Yeah, there's an interview I did with Chris, and I will upload it to the YouTube channel. I keep forgetting, and I'll probably just get on StreamYard and just play it on through the board. Where it definitely felt like there was no interaction between the writing, or between Nick Spencer and the artists.
And we know that.
Yeah.
Otley did say that, he let the artists kind of have, in the scripts, there was artistic freedom. Mm-hmm. He said, Otley said something like he was doing one of the Scorpion issues and it said fight scene, do whatever in the script. Which, I mean, that's not necessarily a bad thing.
No, it allowed him. I remember that Scorpion story, and it allowed him to flex his muscles too. Otley's. So again, it's one of those things where
I think it was a combination of the two. I think that Spencer had free reign starting out, and then slowly, I think around 2099, because that's when the cracks in the foundation. Like, if you go back and read 2099, is when the cracks started showing.
Yeah.
I think editorial started sticking their fingers in the pie, and Spencer was like, "Okay, this is getting this." Why I came on here with the condition of no editorial interference, and then eventually he got the Substack deal, and he was like, "All right, I'm out.
Take the money and run."
Well, I mean, frankly, if I have an option to do creator-owned stuff,
and he wasn't even doing any writing, he was just going around recruiting people to go to Substack. That's an easy gig.
Yeah.
I mean, he's not doing any more. He's going to be writing for Substack now, but he's not doing the recruiting bit anymore.
Yeah, which that whole thing just.
My friend got a hold of he met Hickman at New York Comic Con, and he got the manual or the kind of lore book for his new creator owned with Huddleston and Del Mundo.
Yeah,
looks good. I guess the Substack money paid off.
So, all right, let's let's kind of let's start to final thoughts before we get to the end of the episode, guys.
This is an okay month. I didn't hate it, didn't love it. No.
All right, so before we get Adam, your final thoughts?
Solid stuff this month.
So actually, real quick, Mike posted in the crawl space server, and I actually kind of want to talk about this real quick. That there's not a whole lot of like stuff to talk about because it's mostly set up, but it spoils its own twists by accident. Because like that Peter and Felicia will be back together because of the solicits for MJ Black Cat, and then we already know what's going to happen with the debt collector guy because they've teased it for ASM 14, and that's a chasm issue. So we'll see follow up on that, and then we know it's Goblin or Queen Goblin in the last page because the book telegraphs it to us.
Yeah, no, it is a little.
I do want to know.
It telegraphs itself way too much, and that's kind of by accident.
That reminds me, like, who is Avatar? Nick Spencer's talking about, not Nick Spencer. Nick Lowe is talking about, and one of the letters pages, he said he's talking about, these fans are writing in, and someone's like, "Oh, I'm a big Mysterio fan," and Nick Lowe's talking about Mysterio, and he says something about this character called Avatar, and I'm like, "Huh? What is that?" I'm thinking, is that the glowing guy? TM?
I think Avatar is the glowing dude.
Yeah. It was just a weird. I don't know if that was like a slip on his part or if he did that on purpose.
The letters pages doesn't have more information than the actual book.
Yeah,
and that's an issue. You can't be doing that.
I just wonder if it's like if he's just like so overworked. I mean, people are always like, "Oh, where are the editors? Where are the editors?" But I mean, I think he's working pretty hard, and I'm wondering if it's like, if it was a slip or if he actually did that on purpose. Because it's like, what is that?
Hang on,
I don't know what that character is.
Where is that?
So this also screams that everything in this book is right now being editorially driven, and I just don't know if that's necessarily a good thing. So,
wait, Adam, it's on the letters page. Like, which letter is it? The second one?
I think it was. I have to look.
I'm looking at the letters page right now. I'm not seeing anything about an Avatar.
It was 10.
Oh, it was just 10.
I think.
Let me go back and. Okay, which letter?
It's on the second page of letters, I think.
Here we go. Okay. From #1 Living Brain fan to #1 Mysterio fan, I really dig Mysterio 2, Kaysen, and enjoyed with Nick Spencer, Oddly, and Leah Williams and Carlos Gomez, and with Will Quentin. Remember, Mysterio didn't rejoin the Sinister Six by choice. Kindred, and then Avatar. Oh! Is that the Living Brain guy?
It actually might be, but I don't know.
They didn't give him the name. Like they said, he was he was the ultimate living brain. But they didn't give him.
Yeah, they did call him that. Yeah, actually, yeah, that's probably. We go
into Marvel Wiki. That's always a good source.
Yeah, I mean, they keep it updated with the most minute details that sometimes are whatever. I don't know. Anyway.
I mean, look,
just like, who is that? What is that? But maybe that is what they're calling
Ultra Living Brain. No, that's not what he's called.
But maybe it is that because
it implies because it says Kindred and then
Avatar. So that maybe is.
I think that's Ultimate Living Brain.
Yeah.
All right. Anyway,
almost got him. Almost got him.
Gotcha, bitch. Anyways, ending of the episode. Let's thank our patrons before we leave. Venkman, Scott, Greg, Phoenician, Kale, Georgia, Jessica, Catherine, Cindy, and Jurgen. Thank you guys so much for your contributions to the site. They mean the world to us. They literally keep us afloat and going.
So we're going to try something a little different than we've done in the past. So we got this outro. So without further ado, guys, thanks for watching.
That wraps up this episode of the Spider-Man Experience. Thanks for watching. If you're watching us live on YouTube, if you're listening to us on the audio edition, also thank you. Be sure to give us some feedback on your favorite podcasting catchers. But if you are on the YouTube, be sure to give us a like, a share, and subscribe so you can be notified when the next episode of this show drops, but also our other show on the channel, Make My Mayday, the show all about the Spider-Girl title, Spider-Girl world, and the world of the MC2. We got our other great shows on the Spidey Radio Network. Our Spidey Dude Legacy Vault has Clone Saga Chronicles and Spectacular Radio on it. And then we got our newer shows, such as Voices from the Eerie, Amazing Spider-Man Classic Season 2. And our newest show on the network, Spectacular Spider-Man Sal Buscema Era Podcast. Those 4 are our newest shows, along with this one, Spidey Dude Experience. But we've got a new one coming very soon called Books of X. It's going to be a Patreon exclusive. Speaking of our Patreon, I've got to thank our Patreon subscribers before I get out of here. The Vinkman, Scott, Greg, Phoenician, Kale, Georgia, Jessica, Catherine, Cindy, and Jurgen. Thank you guys for your support of the show here on the Spidey Radio Network. All the money goes in, and it really does help keep the lights on. If you want to be a part of the program, you can do it a couple different ways. You can leave us some feedback on your favorite podcasting catchers, but you can also leave us an email, SpideyRadioNetwork@gmail.com, as well as the voicemail line for all the shows here on the Spidey Radio Network, 818-925-6631. Thanks for watching, thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time here on the Spidey Radio Network.